Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my pleasure to welcome our many listeners in this country and, of course, throughout the world, but also to welcome to the programme four individual and diverse personalities who this week are going to play Just a Minute. And seated on my right, it's a great pleasure to welcome back that versatile comedian and great stalwart of Just a Minute with his great strength and humour. Would you please welcome Paul Merton? And beside him sits the veteran player of this game with his own individual approach to the show. That is Clement Freud. And seated on my left, we have that exuberant player of the game with his own individual style of performance, Julian Clary. And beside him, we welcome someone who's never played the game before, and she's had the courage to come here and take on these four intrepid players of the game, and that is Pauline McLynn. Would you please welcome all four of them? Beside me sits Charlotte Davis, who's going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from Greenwich Theatre. So let's get the show started with Paul Merton. Paul, a very topical subject to begin this show from Greenwich. Greenwich Mean Time. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
On the African branch of the World Service, a newsreader once said the time is 9 o'clock Greenwich. Meantime, here is the news. And I always think of that when I come to Greenwich, and what a beautiful part of the world it is. I've just walked up to the Royal Observatory, and there you can see the meantime is written across the pavement. Well, I say it's not really particularly the style I meant before. It's more engraved in the floor. And what a wonderful...
Julian challenged.
Thought there was hesitation.
No.
I think he was going with style and aplomb, yes. And no, Paul, I disagree. So you get a point for a wrong challenge. You keep the subject. You have 36 seconds still available. Greenwich Mean Time starting now.
Of course, when...
Clement challenged.
We've had, of course.
No, we haven't.
Oh, we always.
We often have, of course, but
We
he
must
actually
have had,
hasn't said it yet today.
Really?
No, really. So, Paul, another incorrect challenge, another point, and 35 seconds starting now.
It came to pass that I was walking through a magnificent open field, and I suddenly thought to myself, how can I divine the longitude or indeed the latitude of where I am? And because I was... Ooh.
Julian, you challenge.
That, I thought, was another hesitation.
That was definitely a hesitation. Yes, he was running out of steam. So he came to a halt, hesitation. Julian, you take over the subject with a correct challenge and a point. Greenwich, meantime, is with you, and there are 22 seconds available, starting now.
It's a cheap thrill to be here in Greenwich, where actually mean time emanates from. And I went sniffing round the park.
Clement challenge.
Hesitation.
There was a bit of a stumble there, Julian.
I had a little phlegm in my throat. That's what it was.
That's what we call hesitation.
Well,
You're just like a fisherman's friend.
Thank you.
I think on this occasion, Clement, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt, and maybe I'll redress it later on when in your favour somehow or other. So we won't allow it this time, Julian. You keep the subject. You have 15 seconds, Greenwich Mean Time, starting now.
In that lovely green expanse, could I find the little egg that ticks-tocks away from which Greenwich Mean Time throbs? I couldn't. I asked a policeman.
Paul challenged.
Does Greenwich Mean Time throb from an egg? Is that how it works? Is it a throbbing egg?
Now we're never going to find out.
I mean, just justify what you said. How can you tick away?
I think throbbing is a kind of rhythmical thing, much like a metronome. Therefore, it's a useful tool to use when describing time.
But where does the
throbbing
egg come in? Where does the egg come in, though?
I'll tell you where the egg comes in, if I can have the
Well,
subject.
you're going to get the benefit of the doubt a second time, Julian. Well, another point and 5 seconds, starting now.
Not everyone knows, but under that great big copper dome is an thing that I mentioned before.
Paul, you challenge first.
It was hesitation.
That was a hesitation. you got in with half a second to go. Oh. And you have Greenwich Mean Time starting now.
1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1,500! 1
And in this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Paul Merton. So at the end of that round, he has a lead over everybody else. Julian's in second place. Pauline and Clement have yet to score. And Pauline, it'd be lovely to hear from you.
Well, I'm officially terrified now. That first round was vicious.
I know, don't worry, darling. I'm here to help you. The subject is wine. I'm sure you know something about it. Will you talk on that subject? Why are you laughing?
Is that my brother laughing? It is, isn't it?
60 seconds starting now.
I like a glass of wine, as anybody who is my friend can tell you. But I am a little worried about my love of wine, because they say that in vino veritas. That is not the case when it comes to me. When I've had too much wine, Pauline shuts down and a woman called Rachel takes over. Now, I don't know who this person is, but she says things that I don't agree with. She is ruining my life, and she has got to go. I suppose the thing would be that if I could practice moderation while drinking my wine, I wouldn't have this problem. But it seems to me that wine is one of those things that you should enjoy with a meal, or perhaps a special occasion like a wedding or a funeral or a christening. And
Clement is challenged.
There were rather a lot of oars.
Yes. But you did go magnificently for 48 seconds. So as it's her first time on the show, let's give her a bonus point for doing that. No, Clement.
Let her go on.
She's got a point, and you've had a legitimate challenge, so you've got 12 seconds. Wine starting now.
The wine waiter, when I asked for what I should have with my pudding, said, "We have an Alsatian Gewürztraminer Trockenbeeren Auslese, 1993. So I decided that would be...
On this occasion, Clement Freud was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's now equal with Julian, Clary in second place. Paul's in the lead, and Pauline has also scored. So, it's just...
you were.
She's got some points, so I should have said. Julian, will you take the next round? The subject now, Hoodies. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
I always wear my hood pulled up, if you know what I'm saying. And I went down to the supermarket the other day and I was refused entry. No hoodies in here, they said. I said, I'm not some ruffian, I'm a celebrity, merely trying to go about my business and get in a few bits and pieces before it gets dark without causing undue attention drawn to myself. You see, there's a lot of fear about hoodies, and I, for one, am standing up for them. Young people get cold just like anybody else, and they want to have a bit of fur.
Paul, challenge.
Well, it was a hesitation.
It was a little hesitation there.
You're not allowed to inhale in this game.
Yes, there's no rule that says no breathing.
Listen, I know, but you see, one has to make those difficult judgments, and the audiences are utterly prejudiced against anyone who's their favourite at that particular moment. You were their favourite in the last round, Julian's in this round, and Paul, he might win the favouritism over to him on this one, as he takes over the subject with a point, and 30 seconds on Hoodies starting now.
Hoodies are like shreddies, and there's not so much fibre in them. What you do is you pour them into a bowl, put the milk on them, marvellous breakfast. It's wonderful. It's made out of anorak and cheesecloth. Beautiful. Beautiful.
So, Julian, you challenge first.
That was a hesitation.
Yes, and
No, it wasn't.
A stumble.
Repetition.
It was
Repetition, yes,
Of
repetition.
course. And you've got another point for that, and you have another 19 seconds on Hoodies starting now.
There's a lady in about row 10 wearing a purple hat, and you see, if you tried to go into the supermarket that I went into, but no one's noticed I've repeated.
Paul, challenge.
Repetition of supermarket.
Yes. You did go into the supermarket.
I know, I'm not going to deny it.
Right. I know people like to argue with me. 10 seconds are still available, Paul. Tell us more about Hoodies starting now.
I went into the supermarket the other day and I was rather astonished to see this elaborate sign above the door. There, in big red letters, as bold as you please, it said, "You are not allowed to come in."
Paul Merton speaking as the whistle went. Gain that extra point. And he has increased his lead at the end of that round, ahead of Julian, Clary, Clement, Freud and Pauline, McLynn in that order. And Clement, will you take the next round? The subject is jockeying for position. Would you like to talk on that subject in this game, starting now?
Jockeying for position is what one does in the immigration queue almost at any airport in the United States. The important thing is try not to get behind a Puerto Rican, because it takes such a very long time. So when you're in a queue...
Pauline, what is your challenge?
A repetition of the word queue?
Yes, that's right. Well done. So, Pauline, you're listening well. You've got a point. You have the subject, and you have 43 seconds jockeying for position starting now.
As a member of one of the races of the world who have populated other countries, I have to say that I'm thoroughly in favour of jockeying for position in any immigration line. It's true that the Irish built the world, and of course Shakespeare was one of ours as well, in case you didn't know. And we do like to jockey for position while claiming him. So I think that the Irish are to be lauded, really.
Clement challenge. Oh! You recognise
No,
it,
whatever it was, no.
Yes.
Repetition of
And the Irish, yes. You brought the Irish in just a little bit too much.
The Irish problem.
Pauline. And a point to you, Clement. 19 seconds, jockeying for position starting now.
Positioning for jockeys is really the important thing. In any flat race, you have to choose because it's drawn by the jockey club before. I said jockey twice.
I know. And Paul, you challenge first.
Repetition, jockey.
9 seconds, jockeying for position starting now.
And they're coming up on the far side, and it's Lucky Boy, followed by Mr. T, and that's how the horse...
Clement challenge.
3 ands.
Really, no. It's a correct challenge, so within the rules of just a minute, I have to give it to you, but you'll get no more benefits of the doubt. And do watch it, Clement, but you have the point, and 5 seconds on jockeying for position starting now.
Outside any church or synagogue or abbey or cathedral.
Julian challenge. Hoisted on your own petard.
Yep.
Julian, your challenge, please.
Horrible repetition of all.
I know. Yes.
Outrageous.
Julian, you had a correct challenge of all. And you have half a second to go.
You see, Paul.
So, you were speaking when the whistle went, Julian, and you got that extra point, just 1 point behind our leader, Paul Merton, and just ahead of the other 2. And Pauline, we'd like you to take the next round. The subject now is the best thing about cats. I don't know whether you're a cat person or not, but tell us something about them in this game, starting now.
The best thing about cats, it seems to me, is that we can learn a lot from them. They have much to offer us in the way of how to manipulate a person. I think they're practically as good as the Catholic Church at getting people to do things for them for nothing. For instance, I learned a very interesting thing from my grey cat last week. As you may know, there's a crisis in the health service, and she got very ill, so I rushed her to the vet, who then took her immediately into surgery, no waiting on trolleys for her. So
Julian challenge.
There were 3 hers.
She's a she-cat. I can't deny her sexuality.
I'm going to be generous here and say, Pauline hasn't played the game before, but you do have to watch it because they're very sharp, as you see.
They are. They're vicious.
So Julian gets a point because it was a correct challenge, but Pauline keeps the subject and carries on with the best thing about cats starting now.
I'm sure that if I presented myself to the vet and said, I have learned a lot from my cat.
Paul challenge.
We had vet before.
You had the vet before. 26 seconds. Tell us something about the best thing about cats starting now.
Chessington Zoo has got a special place for the big cat, and if you go there, you'll see lions, tigers, leopards, cheetahs, pumas, tabbies, all sorts are there. And you go and ask the staff what they feed them on, and they say, well...
Julian challenge.
Well, he's not telling us what the best thing is about cats. He's just rambling on.
I concur.
That's an interesting thing, yes.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It is, that's right. He's just giving us a list of all the things at Chessington Zoo. Not necessarily the best thing about it. So I think that was well thought out, Julian.
Thank you. It's deviation.
And you have a point for that. 13 seconds still available. The best thing about cats starting now.
The best thing about cats is when they want to go to the lavatory, they dig a little hole and they position themselves...
Paul challenge.
That's not great if you live in a flat. Terrible. Dig a little hole. Best thing about cats, deviation. The terrible thing about cats is not the best thing about cats. I mentioned the best thing about cats at all. Deviation.
No. Give Paul a bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption. Julian, you still have the subject. And a point for being interrupted. 8 seconds, the best thing about cats, starting now.
Down drops the effluence, and then with their paw, they cover it up and go about their business, and no one's any the wiser. I think...
Paul challenged.
Well, I think we're all the wiser now, aren't we?
Yeah, but within the world of the cat...
Is that really the best thing about cats?
I think it's one of the best things about cats.
Do you?
They're much more hygienic than dogs.
Oh, okay.
So, Paul, another bonus point to Paul because they enjoyed what he said. You have a point because you were interrupted, and you have 3 seconds. The best thing about cats, starting now.
Whether or not that's hygienic, I don't know. Depends whether...
Clement challenged.
We've had hygienic.
No, I said hygienic, he didn't.
Well, that's it.
No, so you didn't say hygienic,
I
did
didn't
you?
know you did.
No, that's right,
Picked
yes.
up on your thoughts.
So you've got another point, and you've got 1 second on the best thing about cats, starting now.
Washing their hands is...
So, the best thing about cats, all that talk about cats has really set Julian alight, hasn't it? And he's moved forward, again, when he won when the whistle went, and he's now in a strong lead ahead of Paul Merton, even stronger against Clement, Freud and Pauline McLynn. And Julian, it's also your turn to begin. The subject is my roots. Tell us something about my roots. You can take it whichever way you like, starting now.
I am a natural blonde, but every 6 years...
Full chance.
When did you become a natural blonde?
Just born this way.
Deviation. Not a natural blonde, Nicholas. You know that, don't you? He does, he knows
If
that.
I was to say that, it would look as if I knew Julian too intimately, and I'm sure that you were born a natural blonde. Is that right?
I was.
I'm sure of it. So you have an interruption, and you still have my roots, and you have 58 seconds starting now.
I go to a lovely woman called Katrina, who, funnily enough, is from Germany, which brings us to the other meaning of my roots, because I recently did a programme called Who Do You Think You Are? And fancy, I'm a kraut. Well, I didn't have the faintest idea. I had to go to my mother and break the news. I said, it's not as if I'm saying, look, I'm sorry, I'm heterosexual. It wasn't that bad. But that is where...
Clement challenged.
Hesitation.
There
and
was
repetition
hesitation,
about...
yes.
I was just getting into character.
I know, right. So, Clement, you have the subject of my roots, and you have 35 seconds starting now.
I'm trying to remember what my roots were. I think roughly dark brown with the odd grey patch. And then there came a time... I've never lost any hair. I have kept every one that has come out. I happen to be bald. If this were television, that would be an entirely unnecessary statement to make. But my roots on a family basis side...
Julian challenged.
Oh, I thought he hesitated.
He did hesitate just then. He did, yes. And my roots is with you, and there are 12 seconds available starting now.
Turns out my great-grandmother got married in Deptford, which is just down the road. And then looking at birth certificates, we found out that she was 6 months up the duff when she waddled down the aisle.
So Julian Clary was again speaking as the whistle went and gained that extra point, and with others in the round, he has increased his lead over the other three. And we move to Clement Freud and a fairly topical subject here, the Cutty Sark. Tell us something about the Cutty Sark, Clement, in this game, starting now.
The Cutty Sark is a clipper, and like most ships of that name, it was invented in the late 19th century, I think 1870s probably. And I was at school in Devon and went to Falmouth and saw the Cutty Sark, which then was famed for getting from Sydney to London in 75 days, which was incredibly fast, because there was then no London Underground or other means of getting from one place to another. The Cutty Sark.
Paul, you challenge.
That was a long sort of deviation from English language, long pronunciation of the, so deviation from English language as normally pronounced. Do you see what I'm saying? The...
Well, he was going so...
You can't go the and the word goes on forever.
But it was... He's been working for his benefit throughout this show. He's got another benefit of the doubt. You have 25 seconds, Clement, and try and go a bit quicker if you can. The Cutty Sark, starting now.
There are some people who refer to the Cutty Sark as the Cutty Sark.
Paul challenged.
Deviation. He didn't go the Cutty Sark. He just went the Cutty Sark like normal people do.
So that was deviation.
Deviation from how he normally pronounces the. I'm not letting it go, am I?
No. Give Paul a bonus point. He deserves it for that. Clement still has a subject and a point. Cut the Cutty Sark still with you, Clement. 22 seconds, starting now.
The Cutty Sark. That's what Paul wants me to call it. Is now.
Paul challenged.
Is the on the card?
Yes.
Oh, never mind.
Another point to Clement. 19 seconds, the Cutty Sark, Clement, starting now.
I understand the Cutty Sark is now in Greenwich, and I'm very pleased to be here because meantime is what I know this suburb of London.
Paul, yes.
Bit of hesitation there.
Yeah, there would definitely be hesitation there, Paul. 10 seconds are still available. Tell us something about the Cutty Sark, starting now.
Yes, it's wonderful to be able to play this game of just a minute, just in the shadow of the great Cutty Sark. Who can forget the olden days when we look...
Clement challenged.
There's no shadow at night.
He said it was. Well, it's not dark, and also you get moon shadows.
And I was about to say, if it's in moonlight, you get lovely moon shadows.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can have shadows at any time. Anyway, you have 2 seconds on the Cutty Sark, starting now.
The Cutty Sark! When you hear that name, you think to yourself, I'm proud to be British!
Right, so Paul Merton speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's creeping up on our leader, Julian Clary. Julian's still in the lead, and then it's Paul Merton and Clement Freud in that order, and then Pauline McLynn, and, Paul, it's your turn to begin. Oh, an acid tongue. It happens a lot in this show, doesn't it? Tell us something about the subject in this game, starting now.
An acid tongue is easily rectified by having something sweet. There's no point in being acid in your comments because people will come to hate you. Instead, spread lightness everywhere you go. Look at Nicholas Parsons. We could make acid comments about him, but no, we tend to think of him as a lovely, charming institution. Shows you...
Clement Freud, I know what you're going to say.
He doesn't, no, he doesn't.
I think you're utterly mean to applaud that.
Honest.
But I'll show you how fair and generous I am, because you did applaud him, and he got a good joke. Clement can have a bonus point. But it was an incorrect challenge. And, Paul, you keep the subject, and you've got another point, of course. 42 seconds, an acid tongue, starting now.
When I was younger, I didn't care what I said to people, and consequently I had very few friends. But under the close guidance of Mr...
Julian challenged.
It was repetition of people.
When did he say people before?
Earlier on, before Clement interrupted him.
Correct
Okay.
challenge. 36 seconds, an acid tongue, starting now.
If after this recording I said to Paul, let's go for a walk in the moonlight, his acid tongue would...
Paul would
There
challenge.
was a bit of sort of deviation
It
there,
was a
slip
bit,
up,
yes,
wasn't
a
it?
bit of a slip up
a
there.
little, just a
It's
tiny
back
one.
with you, Paul.
Not much, but just a tiny
31
one.
seconds, an acid tongue, starting now.
I remember one teacher said to me at school...
Pauline challenge.
I just think he made an arse of the word me there. So, does that mean hesitation or deviation?
He did do that, but he didn't actually... Actually, it was an incorrect challenge, my darling. But we'll give her a bonus point because she was...
I'm
listening
so
very-
far behind, you might as well.
Doesn't matter. Darling, it doesn't matter about the points. It's your contribution. that's
No,
so
the
important.
winning is everything.
Give her another point for that line. Paul, 29 seconds, an acid tongue, starting now.
If you remember, Kenneth Williams wrote a book called Acid Drops, and very popular it was too, full of show business anecdotes and theatrical stories relating where somebody with an acid tongue has said something which has made somebody else look a little bit...
Clement challenge.
Some.
So 15 seconds, Clement, on an acid tongue, starting now.
Go to a butcher and buy a tongue and pickle it in vinegar, salt, shallots, onions, chili peppers, turmeric, juniper berries, Cumberland sauce.
So Clement Freud, speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. He's moved forward, and we are actually moving into the final round. Out in the lead is Julian Clary, But he's only 4 points ahead of Paul Merton. Then trailing a little is Clement Freud. In fourth place is Pauline McLynn, but she hasn't played the game before. She's given great contribution, and she's going to take the final round. Pauline, the subject is pop. Tell us something about pop in this game, starting now.
Pop is the sound that the weasel makes when he goes. Pop is the sound of champagne.
Julian challenge.
Oh! Sorry. Yeah.
It was a repetition of sound, sadly.
It has the sound, yes. But it's the last round, and she hasn't played the game before. Can we be generous to her?
Don't.
The audience would love it, wouldn't they? And you're in the lead, strongly there. 53 seconds, Pauline, on the pop, starting now.
Pop is the music I grew up with. I'm sorry. Oh!
Well, she had a general breakdown.
So Julian takes it on this occasion. A point to Julian. 50 seconds, Julian. Pop, starting now.
I've always been a huge fan of Blazing Squad, and I think their particular brand of music comes in the category of pop. It's finger-snapping, toe-tapping, and you can sing along at the top of your voice in the bathroom, which is what I do. I don't have a particularly fine voice, but then nor do they. So it blends in, and if you ask me to name any of their particular hits right now, I think...
Pauline challenge.
The repeat of the word particular?
He did repeat particular.
Yes.
26 seconds on pop, starting now.
I was delighted to see Tony Christie's pop classic Show Me the Way to Amarillo go to #1 recently, but I have to tell you that I am old enough to remember it when it first came out. I bought that record, and yes, in those days, it wasn't a CD, but a 45. I sang along, happy as the day was going, because I loved that tune, and...
So Pauline McLynn, speaking as a whistle when gained, that well-deserved extra point, and the audience obviously delighted that you did.
I think they can smell my fear from where they are.
But I have to tell you, in the final analysis of things, you didn't get a lot of points, but you gave But you did give a fine contribution for which we're grateful. Clement Freud gave his usual contribution and coming in third place. Paul Merton gave his excellent contribution but finished up in second place. But out in the lead, 6 points ahead of everybody else, was Julian Clary. Say, this week, Julian, you're our winner. It only remains for me to say thank you to these four delightful players of the game, Paul Merton, Julian Clary, Pauline McLynn and Clement Freud. I also thank Charlotte Davis, who's helped me with the score. She'd blown a whistle when the 60 seconds was up. We thank our producer-director, Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're grateful to this lovely audience here at Greenwich Theatre, who've cheered us on our way. But from our panel, and from me, Nicholas Parsons, tune in. Will be the next time we play Just a Minute. Until then, goodbye.
And there'll be more from Just a Minute next week.
Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away once more, it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners throughout the world, but also to welcome to the programme four delightful, talented, skillful players of the game as they try and speak on a subject I give them and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And those four players are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Kit Hesketh-Harvey, and seated on my left, Liza Tarbuck and Chris Neill. Please welcome all four of them. Thank you. Beside me sits Janet Staplehouse, who's going to help me with the score and blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Shaw Theatre, which is in the Bloomsbury area of northwest London. And we have a lovely mixed London audience ready to start the show with Kit Hesketh-Harvey. And the subject in front of me, Kit, is the most eccentric person I know. I don't know who it is. Talk on the subject. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Some would say Salvador Dali tossing his ocelot into his swimming pool, or Lord Berners who used to dye his fantail pigeons the particular colour of the tie he was wearing that day. Others might cite Dame Edith Sitwell saying her doggerel into her zengophone to bemused people, rather like these at the Shaw Theatre.
Paul Merton challenge.
Slight hesitation there.
Yes, that was a hesitation, Paul. So that was a correct challenge. You get a point for that, of course. You take over the subject. You have 41 seconds available, starting now.
A friend of mine in Swansea, Rob Conybeare, is a very good artist, but he's undoubtedly also an eccentric gentleman. He once walked around the local shopping centre with a paper hat and a daffodil sticking out the top of it, shaped like a motorcycle helmet, but a remarkably good artist.
Chris, Neill challenged.
So it's really just a question. Where do you get a daffodil shaped like a motorcycle helmet?
I think what he conveyed to me was with the daffodil and the paper hat.
Oh, I see. Then the whole thing
It looked a
came
bit like a
together.
motorcycle.
Sorry.
That's the way I interpreted
Right,
it.
no,
Chris.
I'm sure right. No,
No,
just,
that's all right.
it
It
was
was
a
nice to hear
question.
from you.
No, hello.
So, incorrect challenge, Paul. You have a point for that. You keep the subject. 26 seconds, starting now.
If I was to think of the most eccentric person I know living in London, then I think I would probably go for Nicholas. He is an extraordinary figure. He walks up and down Piccadilly every morning, showing himself off in his striped blazers and his straw boater. He doesn't know it's been out of fashion for 65 years, and who's going to tell him? He looks wonderful in his Oxford bags and his little moustache, which you can't see on radio, but it's there. A little black thing, rather reminiscent of Hitler, but I can't say anything about it. He thinks it's Charlie Chaplin.
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. And it was, of course, Paul Merton. In fact, he's the only one to score any points in that round. Lisa Tarbuck, will you take the next round? The subject is Back to Square One. I think that has an echo of a television show you did once.
Yes.
And you are... There's 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
This phrase reportedly hails from a grid that was published in the Radio Times, enabling the listeners to follow the action of the football game and locate the ball. Labelled 1 to 8, the actual fact is that at no point did the announcer say back to square one, because in fact the square one was bottom right.
Chris challenged.
Was there a repetition of in fact?
There was indeed, yes. So, Chris, you're going to
Popular
correct.
challenge.
Is that invective? Grammatically? What's that called?
You have a
Those
correct
words?
challenge,
What, in
Chris.
fact?
I'm
You have
distracted.
42 seconds. Tell us something about Back to Square One, starting now.
Back to square one. It's when I suppose you have to go back to the original thing and start all over again. Maybe something's gone wrong, possibly...
Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, possibly. And 32 seconds, Paul. Back to Square One, starting now.
Well, as Lisa said, it used to be associated with this game when it was printed in the Radio Times, but if it doesn't come from there, I'd like to know from her where it does come from.
And Lisa
It will be
challenge.
my pleasure to tell you.
Right, and you managed to pick up the cue brilliantly. You were the first one to challenge. 25 seconds, Lisa. Tell us more about Back to Square One, starting now.
It would seem the I have to put it
Hesitation.
back.
Hesitation,
Hesitation,
indeed, yes. And you're getting more points with this one. Back to Square One, back with you, Paul. 23 seconds, starting now.
I'd still like to hear Lisa's explanation.
Hesketh-Harvey
So
challenge first.
deviation, Lisa. Well, it was hesitation, yeah.
Do you know anything about Back to Square One?
I've never heard of it
No,
before.
well, at least she knows all about it.
Well, let's all hear from her.
Oh, Lord.
So you're going to hand it over? Because
I'll hand it over.
Kit, you challenge first. Very generous of you. Lisa, they're giving it to you. Kit challenged, so he gets the point because it was a correct challenge.
Oh,
But
Janet's
Lisa
on that.
keeps the
Well, that's
subject.
rather a good
22
deal, isn't it? I don't have
seconds.
to blither.
Back to Square One, starting now.
The earliest mention of Back to Square One is, in fact, in conjunction with the game Snakes and Ladders. I have this on good authority, but I have seen several historical parts of the game and the board date. Oh,
Oh, Paul
What's the
challenge.
hesitation?
yeah,
Yes.
it was. I've gone tight.
Have you?
Yeah. It's this draft.
Do you want to loosen something before we carry on?
Now, stop that right now.
9 seconds, Paul, for you on Back to Square One, starting now.
If we think of our life as being a series of squares, we are now at, say, square 28. We can look back at our previous existence.
So Paul Merton was again speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point and increased his lead. Chris, Neill, will you take the next round? The subject is St. Pancras. Not very far from here, but tell us something about that delightful building. 60 seconds, starting now.
Well, I'm fairly confident when I say that St. Pancras was the patron saint of cramps and headaches, but you probably all know that. But here in London, St. Pancras refers, as Nicholas alluded to, the railway station on the north side of the Euston Road, very near King's Cross. From there, you can visit lovely towns like Luton, Bedford, Wellingborough, Corby, Derby, Leicester, Loughborough, Nottingham.
Kit, you challenged.
Deviation on an epic scale, surely. Lovely places.
Well, that was supposed to be sardonic humour.
It was.
No, it wasn't. It's true. I think Kettering's smashing.
Well, that's it. It doesn't matter. To him, they might be absolutely delightful and lovely. To you, they might not be. So he wasn't actually deviating within the rules of just a minute.
I'm fine.
So those lovely places, you can carry on with them. Chris, 37 seconds. I apologise, everybody lives in Derby, Crewe, Northampton, Allerton, but
Why? Because they live there, or because?
in case they thought I was denigrating their lovely hometowns. Chris
sure
loves
they're
them
beautiful. I very
dearly
much look
and
forward to
regularly goes to St Pancras, will leap on the train to have the experience of going up to Northallerton. 37 seconds, St Pancras with you, Chris, starting now.
It's a beautiful building in which is a hotel, which I think they're renovating and are going to open sometime soon. It'll probably cost a fortune to stay there, but it might be worth it. I know on those special days they do in this fair city of ours where you can visit buildings which are normally...
Paul Chance.
No, I was going to say repetition of building. But
Yes, you say it's a beautiful building. No, it's buildings and
Yeah, I
building,
think it was
wasn't
buildings
it?
and buildings.
Glad you were listening. That's very decent. No, I have no idea.
That's my job, actually, to listen, you see. So I did building and buildings, so it wasn't repetition. 23 seconds, still with you, Chris. St Pancras, starting now.
Oh, I'm so glad I've still got this subject to St Pancras. I've got a great deal to say on it. As I mentioned before, he is the saint responsible for those nasty physical ailments.
Paul
It
Chance.
must be repetition if you say, as I said before. It must be the definition of it, surely.
Yes, but you know, Paul, you have to keep going, and sometimes you keep going and you find a different word to express the same particular thing. And he said, as he said before, that wasn't repetition either verbally or any otherwise, and he did keep going.
Yes.
So, Chris, you have another point. And you have 15 seconds on St Pancras, starting now.
15 seconds on St Pancras. Thank goodness there's enough time to let you know even more of the facts I have about St Pancras. As I mentioned before... Oh, no, I said before!
So, you challenge.
Sorry, that really was.
Repetition of before, right, as I said before. Right, Kit, you've got in with 6 seconds to go on St Pancras, starting now.
He was a 14-year-old boy martyr whose relics were presented to the King of Northumberland. It's day 32 in this palace. And
Right, so Kit Hesketh-Harvey speaking as the whistle went. Again, the next point, he's in third place, just behind Chris Neill, who's just behind Paul Merton, and Liza is behind them. And Paul Merton, it's your turn to begin. The subject is spectacles. Tell us something about spectacles in this game, starting now.
Curious thing, spectacles. I'm looking out at the audience now, and they seem what a charming bunch of people. I only have to put my glasses on, and the reality is, oh my God, it's much better because it brings people into focus. And where would we be without our glasses? We'd be somewhere, but not sure where. We'd be stumbling around like Mr. Magoo's in the dark, bounding into various bits and pieces of furniture, not really knowing where we are. The glasses, when they were...
Lisa challenge.
Repetition of glasses.
Yes, in fact, second repetition, actually.
Really?
35 seconds, Lisa. Spectacles starting now.
I used to wear glasses and I had bifocals in the bottom to help me read easier, just during my A-levels, and then I promptly lost them because they were the most
Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
I call it hesitation, yes, Paul. Spectacles is the subject. 60 seconds, starting now.
Think of two monocles glued together. That basically is what your pair of spectacles are. I have a rather peculiar prescription when I go to the optician because one eye is completely different to the other. This one here...
Kid challenge.
So was that? No, I mean, he was doing a gesture which the listeners couldn't hear. Maybe that was.
You don't hear gestures.
There's a lot of people on the panel I don't like.
I thought it was teetering towards hesitation, but it may have just been dramatic effect. I don't know, Chairman. What do you think? You're so.
It wasn't
fair about
hesitation.
these
It was something else which I won't tell you because
go
otherwise
on,
you'll
tell us.
challenge
What was
for it.
it?
No. Otherwise you'll lose it, won't you?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because there's now only 12 seconds left. And you still have the subject of spectacles starting now.
It's beautiful at last to be able to see with 20 ditto vision. Fantastic. Objects in the distance suddenly seem so close. It's remarkable. I walk...
So Paul Merton was again speaking as the whistle when gained the extra point has increased his lead at the end of the round, and the word he repeated was one. And
Was it?
It was, yeah.
one.
Oh, yes.
No one picked up on it, right? I have to listen. So
Well, don't look so glum. Don't look so glum about it.
Well, I was once, somebody said, you only guess, don't you? I said, how could I? If so anybody can check on it and write in if I'm wrong. Right, where are we? Kit, will you get the next round? The subject is my tactics for winning just a minute. 60 seconds starting now.
My tactics for winning just a minute are clearly less than successful when confronted.
Lisa, challenge.
These are my tactics for winning just a minute. Just butting in and getting a point. Just thought I'd try it.
All right. Lisa, a clever interaction. We give you a bonus point because they enjoyed what you said, but it was an incorrect challenge. So Kit has a point for that, keeps the subject. Man, there are 56 seconds. My tactics for winning just a minute starting now.
Clearly less than successful when confronted with the...
Chris, challenge.
It's a repetition of successful, I think.
No, I don't think he said successful. So, Kit, you have 54 seconds. My tactics for winning just a minute starting now.
When facing the mighty juggernauts that are Paul Merton, Liza Tarbuck and Chris Neill. But for those who don't know, Just a Minute is a game devised by Ian Messiter in which one has to speak for just a minute without hesitation, deviation or repetition. So my tactics for...
Paul, challenge.
Is it really necessary to explain the rules at this point?
They might just have tuned in.
What, after 40 years?
Three young ones, two little 5-year-olds coming to it for the first time.
This is true, but we've moved away from my tactics as to describing the actual game and how the rules
I think I would agree with that challenge of deviation,
right.
Paul. So you have the subject and you have 39 seconds starting now.
It's impossible to really develop 100% sure tactics to win just a minute because, like the game of golf, it is incredibly difficult. Just when you feel you're on top of the particular sport, you realise you don't know how to do it. One good way of doing it is to say a word you've said before, but add an S onto the end. So you suddenly say golfs, for example.
Kid challenge.
We've had lots of says.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Right, well,
Yeah.
listen, Kid, you have the subject. 18 seconds, my tactics for winning just a minute, starting now.
You are allowed to say what is on the card. So my tactics for winning just a minute would be to reiterate and rehearse that sentence. My tactics for winning just a minute, perhaps.
Paul, challenge.
Well, deviation, because if you just kept saying my tactics of winning just a minute, other than this round, that won't win you just a minute.
No,
it's
you
only in this round saying that, so you can't say here's my tactics for just a minute saying I'm going to repeat that my tactics for winning just... Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know
Very
what
metaphysical. It's deviation.
No, it's abundant logic in what you've just said, Paul.
Is there?
So, yes. So you have a point.
Clutching at straws.
No, it's correct.
Absolutely.
What you just said, a correct challenge. And you have 7 seconds on my tactics for winning just a minute, starting now.
If you can challenge somebody with just 7 seconds to go, then you realise there's very little time left.
Kit, challenge.
It was realised before.
No, there wasn't. You're bluffing on that one.
No, on the golf thing.
Was there?
Yes, you realise on the golf.
It was, yeah.
Kit, you've got a correct challenge. You have 2 seconds on my tactics, starting now.
Janet Staplehurst.
Lisa, challenge.
I'm playing my tactics again. 2 seconds to go. I thought it was worth a chance.
So what is your challenge?
Haven't got one.
You haven't got one. Right.
You haven't got a challenge.
You haven't got a challenge, so that's no tactics for winning. So, but the audience clapped and they
Yeah, you
enjoyed
know
it.
what?
So,
They're gonna give me-
right,
yeah.
give her another bonus point because they enjoyed it.
It's
we are.
working.
But Kit was interrupted, so he gets a point, and he has 1 second on my tactics for winning just a minute, starting now.
Puts the whistle to her lovely lips.
So Kit Hesketh-Harvey, with many points in the round, including one for speaking as the whistle went, has moved forward into 2nd place. He's still behind our leader, Paul Merton, but a little way ahead of Liza Tarbuck and Chris Neill, equal in 3rd place. And Lisa, take the next round, please.
Okay.
A living legend. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Richard Attenborough and his brother David, perhaps. Pele, Paul McCartney, Delia Smith, Shirley Williams even. Why talk about these living legends when, ladies and gentlemen, we are sat here with one of our own? Raised by...
Paul, challenge.
Oh, please, this is just embarrassing.
So, Paul, have you a challenge for the rules adjustments?
No, I'm playing Lisa's. I'm just lucky I said anything. Just press the button and get a point.
Press the
That's what I was
button.
going to do.
No, the response from the audience justifies a bonus point to you, but Lisa gets a point for being interrupted, keeps the subject a living legend, and there are 47 seconds starting now.
Sir Nicholas Parsons was raised by cats.
Chris, Chris, challenge.
Or deviation, you're not knighted, are you?
Not yet, no.
That's a hint, Majesty.
But I think she was only speaking sort of facetiously. In the
I
sense
don't think so. There's a
Seriously,
sort
is
of...
nobody going to challenge the fact you were brought up by cats? Sir Nicholas Pitts, neither here nor there, surely. It doesn't matter whether you've got a knighthood or not. The fact you were brought up by a couple of tabbies...
Chris, actually, your challenge is correct.
Thank
you.
No, sorry. Yeah.
But I mean, Lisa, I don't think we're speaking accurately. I think
You just want me to go on because you think I might say something lovely about you,
of course
don't you?
I do. But I'll be fair. I'll show you how generous and fair I am. Chris.
You give me 5 points.
Chris, you have 44 seconds. A living legend starting now.
The Minotaur of ancient myth and legend is reputed to have died many millennia ago. It's not true, he lives at number 4.
Full challenge.
Well, but this can't be a living legend.
Well, that's what I was going on to say. He lives at number 4 with his lovely wife, Julie, who's...
But you said he died millions of years ago.
Oh, did I? I wasn't really listening.
Paul, your logic wins you the point on the subject. 37 seconds starting now.
A living legend, I suppose, is someone who has achieved a great deal in their career. We look at the likes of Dame Shirley Bassey. This woman's been belted...
It's stuck in his throat.
Well, it's just you collapse with laughter. I'm trying to make a serious case for Dame Shirley.
Maybe it was one of Nicholas's fur balls.
Oh, I'm never going to live down this cat image that we've got. Chris, it's your challenge. What is it?
Kiss. He's Chris, I'm Chris. No, no, sorry, it was hesitation.
It was hesitation.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I think generated by your reaction, actually.
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
You've got
My
the subject.
tactics for winning just a minute.
27 seconds. A living legend with you, Kit, starting now.
It's ridiculous to refer to Nicholas Parsons as a living legend. Legend he may be, but for the other, clearly not. A living...
Chris challenge.
Now, I know I'm coming to the defence of Nicholas a lot tonight, and that is my tactic for winning just a minute, but you're sort of alive, aren't you?
The doctor said it was 50-50 the last time we went.
I don't think I could be doing this show at the pace it goes if I wasn't very much alive.
Quite right.
Well, willpower's a powerful thing.
So, correct challenge, Chris. A living legend with you, and how many seconds? 20, starting now.
Oh.
Poor challenge.
Useful hesitation.
Yes. I thought you were having a sort of special moment there.
I tell you what, I was trying to remember the tablets they give to cats when they're feeling down, and that's what I just hadn't really thought about.
Oh, you were trying to make another cat reference?
No, I was really, and yeah, it's lovely when you see the mechanics of how it all works, isn't it? So no, I didn't.
No, right. So Paul got in on hesitation. 19 seconds. A living legend, Paul, starting now.
The extraordinary thing about Nicholas is he won't go through a door unless his whiskers actually fit exactly. And you know why that is? Because in his house he's got a cat flap fitting around the back. And his wife, she knows that once it gets past 11:30, he's going to be out on the street wandering.
Challenge.
So the two past 11:30.
11:30, yes. Once he gets past 11. Yeah. So, Kit, you've got him with 6 seconds on a living legend starting now.
A living leg end can be very worrying when it's attached to your Sunday joint. All you can do is cut it off and get on with your Brussels sprouts.
Paul challenge.
Well, again, I mean, if your Sunday joint's alive, if it's a living leg end, when you're trying to cut into it, it's clearly not cooked. The logic's all over the place. It's deviation from logic. You can't have a living leg end of a joint that you've just cut.
It's been cooked. No.
What sort of oven is it? You left the leg sticking out or something?
I live in Norfolk.
I dropped my challenge.
I don't think you should be so unkind to that beautiful county. I know it so well, live from that area. Right, so, Paul, a correct challenge. You've got him with 1 second on a living legend starting now.
Nicholas!
So let me give you the score situation, points-wise. At the end of the round, Paul, speaking as a whistle when gained an extra point. Is he going to a stronger lead than he had before? And Chris Neill, will you take the next round? The subject is how to excel at gossip. I don't know if you are much of a gossip, but I imagine you could excel if you tried. But talk on the subject starting now.
How to excel at gossip. The trouble with gossip is it is dependent on facts. Well, make them up, I say. If you know a happily married couple, make out one of them's having an affair. It'll finally get back to you and it'll become true. What a smashing day that is when you hear that news. That's it, really.
Lisa.
I thought I'd better stop that before it got quite ugly and sad.
I know.
I don't believe it of you either.
No, I don't gossip, actually. No.
I think you were going down a route that you actually could not pursue.
Yeah, no, I didn't like it.
And 43 seconds, Lisa. How to excel at gossip, starting now.
A large address book, enough money for a lot of international travel, and a very good memory are, to me, the...
Paul challenge.
Forgotten what she was going to say.
Yeah.
Just after good memory, so hesitation.
Yes, hesitation.
Rubbish at gossip.
Yes. 36 seconds, Paul. How to excel at gossip, starting now.
Gossip is absolutely wonderful. I'd love to hear any kind of tittle-tattle about people, whether it's true or not. Apparently, Nicholas was taken to the vet the other day, and he looked at him. And so basically what happened there was it was a wonderful thing. Meanwhile, over in Korea...
Chris challenge.
Was there a repetition of wonderful?
Yes, there was, actually.
Yes, there was, yes. It was two wonderful words.
Yeah.
So, 17 seconds, Chris, on how to excel at gossip, starting now.
Oh, gossip. We all love a good gossip, don't we? Chatting about...
Paul
Sorry,
challenge.
didn't we start with ooh? When you got the subject first time, wasn't there a ooh? Wasn't
I think it was more of
No, it wasn't the same emotional inflection.
Okay.
Right. So another point to you, Chris. Keep the subject. And 13 seconds. How to excel at gossip, starting now.
Yo, gossip. What a laugh that is when you hear that. Oh, we like hearing all those...
Paul challenge.
Repetition of ooh.
Yo.
No, but we had yo, but then we just had ooh.
You did, yes, right.
I
yes.
don't know.
The audience laughed and nearly drowned it for me. Right. So, you were listening well, Paul. How to excel at gossip, 8 seconds, starting now. Quick challenge.
Sorry, hesitation.
There was. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. 7 seconds. How to excel at gossip, starting now.
Sarah Brightman, the second Mrs. Lloyd Webber, danced with the troupe Hot Gossip, at which she excelled.
Lisa challenge.
It was just a trip on the tee, so actually that was quite mean of me. Hot gossip, you went. Hot gossip.
That was a sort of emotional reaction
artistic,
to the image.
yeah.
That's how they pronounce it, hot gossip in Norfolk.
Oh, is it? Gossip.
I think the thing is that it was just a bit too picky there.
Yeah.
And we'll
Yeah,
just
it was a bit,
ignore
wasn't
the
it?
whole thing. And Kit, you still have the subject. And 1 second for you, Kit, on how to excel at gossip, starting now.
Always speak in the present vindictive.
Oh, so there we are. Paul Merton is still in the lead. He's a few ahead of Kit Hesketh-Harvey, and Lisa Tarbuck and Chris Neill are trailing just behind them in third place. And we're moving into the final round. Kit Hesketh-Harvey, the subject in front of me, Kit, is mushrooming. A lovely subject. Coming from Norfolk as you do, I'm sure you mushroomed a bit, but tell us something about the subject in this game, starting now.
What better way to spend a September or October afternoon when it's warm and damp and moist and fungal than to put on a big hat and get a knife, because you mustn't let the spores get dispersed. Go into Thetford Forest and find those slippery jacks and bolitous.
I'm sorry, I mean, he could just be making up words here, left, right and centre, but what was that last
Sorry,
one?
I was trying to work out what the plural of bolitous was, whether it was Greek or Latin, but
That could be me talking.
I fell over. I fell over in the own mushroom stick.
Did you?
I did.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, we
Yes,
granted,
terrible,
Paul.
great.
And you have 43 seconds on mushrooming, starting now.
The government recently saw fit to ban the magic mushroom, which was a bit of a blow to Nicholas because he had a little stall in Camden Town, didn't he? And I can't say this on radio, really.
Chris,
can
challenge.
Was there... Oh, God, no. Oh. No, I thought there was a repetition of must, but it became mustn't, so that's...
And
yeah.
you're not going to have him for hesitation?
Absolutely. Oh, hesitation,
Yes,
yes.
Chris, 32 seconds on mushroom is starting now.
There is nothing I like more than on a September morning to put on a short-sleeved gingham dress, sling a wicker basket over my arm, and go out into the woods, picking big ones, small types, and some as large as your hat, you know. Anything that's come up overnight, really. You can get delicious types of things, but you have to watch the ones... Oh, I've said ones a number of times, surely.
Why do you keep telling everybody when you make your... Paul, you challenge.
Repetition of ones.
Yes. 13 seconds, mushrooming, Paul, starting now.
You have to be very careful when you go out into the forest to pick your own mushrooms, because some are deeply poisonous. Take a guide, if not in book form, and somebody that knows what they're doing. I prefer to go mushrooming with the Archbishop of Canterbury. There's a bloke.
So Paul Merton brought that round and the show to a close with a flourish and got that extra point for speaking as the whistle went. Give you the final situation here. Liza Tarbuck and Chris Neill, who did extraordinarily well as the last time they were here together on the show, which... No, darling, you haven't.
Oh.
You did almost as well as you did last time, but that was a few weeks ago, so I shouldn't refer to it. And you came in third place, equal. You were a few points behind Kit Hesketh-Harvey, who last time we were at the Shaw Theatre managed to win, but this time way out in the front. Many, many points he scored. In fact, you got a record 24 points.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody's ever got as many as that, Paul. A round of applause, our winner. It only remains for me to say thank you to these four delightful players of the game: Paul Merton, Kit Hesketh-Harvey, Liza Tarbuck and Chris Neill. I thank Janet Staplehurst for helping me with the score, blowing her whistle so well every time the 60 seconds disappeared. We also thank our producer-director, Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this delightful game, and we're grateful to this lovely audience at the Shaw Theatre here in Bloomsbury, who've cheered us on our way magnificently. From our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, from our panel, thank you very much. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my pleasure to welcome our many listeners in this country and, of course, throughout the world, but also to welcome to the programme four interesting, attractive and diverse personalities who this week are going to play Just a Minute. And seated on my right, we have that mistress of the written word, the humorous poet and performer Pam Ayres, and seated beside her we have that veteran player of the game, the man who contributes so much with his wit and anecdotes, that is Clement Freud. And seated on my left, we have that engaging and lovable comedian, Graham Norton. And seated beside him, we have another equally talented comedian and writer, Marcus Brigstocke. Will you please welcome all four of them? And as usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on the subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation or repetition or deviation. And seated beside me is Charlotte Davis, who can help me with the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Mermaid Theatre in Puddle Dock, which is not far from the City of London, beside Blackfriars Bridge. And we have a very interesting, cosmopolitan, very excitable audience who are dying for us to get going. So Graham Norton, begin the show for us with a subject here: how to spot an exhibitionist. Can you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
Let's face it, if you can't spot an exhibitionist, they're obviously not very good at their job. Is it possible for there to be a shy exhibitionist, someone lurking by a tree in a park undoing their top button? I don't think so. However, in other cities, spotting an exhibitionist can be more difficult. For instance, in Newcastle on a Saturday night. Exhibitionist or slut? You decide. I'm not sure how to do it myself. An exhibitionist is someone who likes exhibiting, but I don't think a lovely painter is an exhibitionist unless they are an exhibitionist. Luckily, I can say exhibitionist a lot.
Clement Freud has challenged you.
Deviation.
Why?
Grammar.
Yes, it was a
A painter and they.
Oh, Clement, yes. Oh. It's correct, of course.
Yeah.
Suddenly
You
I'm
haven't
13.
won many friends for that challenge.
I haven't come here for
You haven't come here.
popularity.
You've come here to win points and win the game. Well, yes, his grammar was a little bit devious, so I'm afraid it's a tough challenge, but Graham, I have to give it to him. A correct challenge, a point for a correct challenge. You take over the subject, Clement, is how to spot an exhibitionist. There are 17 seconds starting now.
You get your exhibitionist and put him up against the wall and splatter him with Worcestershire sauce, HP, even tomato ketchup will do. And the extraordinary thing is that the spots remain on the exhibitionist as long as he's...
In this this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Clement Freud, so at the end of the round, he has 2 points, and Graham has 1 point. Ayres, will you take the next round? The subject, fame. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
When you are famous, complete strangers make loud remarks about your appearance like, "Good God, don't she look old?" Tracy Emin achieved fame by displaying her unmade bed, which looked very frosty to me and as though it could have done with a jolly good boil-up in the washer. Cecil Sharp gained fame by collecting old English songs and ballads with such titles as "My Soldier Boy Wears a Blue Cockade," "On the Banks of the Clawdy," and "With Her Box Upon Her Head." Men find that old lovers from long ago rise up and make unflattering comparisons with chipolatas if they are particularly unlucky. So all in all, no, I couldn't say that. Oh, no!
Well, they enjoyed it, Pam, so Clement, you challenged.
Repetition.
Yes, yes, you shouldn't say it. And sometimes, tip, don't draw attention if you tweet. Sometimes they can be generous and let it go, you know.
Oh, really?
I'd like to let it go.
Well, it's a bit late now.
Clement, I've never known you let much go in this game. You are sharp as anybody. Anyway, you've got in there. Another point to you for a correct challenge. 14 seconds are still available. Fame, starting now.
If you have a recognizable face, it's awfully difficult to know because people come up and say, "Would you be Clement Freud?" And I have to say, what is the alternative?
So, there was a hesitation. He saw the whistle go in the mouth. He thought that Charlotte...
I thought she was going to blow it,
I know.
frankly.
Yes. She put it in a second or two early. But, Graham, you now have 2 points, and Clement's got 3. And Marcus and Pam have yet to score, but it doesn't matter, it's early days. And who's going to speak next? Marcus, let's hear from you now.
Right.
I've got a subject here, illusionists. Can you tell us something about illusionists starting now?
Illusionists. This is not a very easy topic for me because whenever I'm asked to talk about illusionists, I'm inclined to repeat the word git several times. I have no enchantment whatsoever with the world of magic. I'm afraid that I simply never have. What they do is deceitful. They lie. All they have effectively achieved at the end of one of their ghastly, tiresome little tricks is to not tell you something that they were doing. They spend hours in their little bedsits.
Graham challenge.
Repetition of little.
There was a hesitation before the little, yes.
And a hesitation as well. Yeah, which I noticed.
So, Graham, you have a correct challenge. You've got 27 seconds. You tell us something about illusionists starting now.
I love illusionists, for they have given us the perfect alibi for murder. When I hate someone, I intend to tie them to a big wooden wheel with balloons around them and then throw knives at them. And when they die, explain it was a trick gone wrong. Who could prove me incorrect? That was close, wasn't it? I nearly said a word I'd already uttered, but I didn't. No. Anywho.
So, Graham Norton speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and he's now taken the lead ahead of Clement Freud, followed by Marcus and Pam. And, Clement, will you please take the next round? The subject is the British transport system. Very provocative subject. We'll talk on it starting now.
The British transport system was honed in the early 19th century by sending prisoners and convicts to Australia. It was pretty successful until the Australians began to send them back. So...
Marcus challenge.
It's a repetition of send.
Yes?
We sent them there and
sent them back.
Very,
well,
very
listen,
good.
Marcus.
Is that just an ooh for interrupting a Sark?
I think it was a new appreciation and impressed.
Yes.
Marcus, correct challenge, a point to you. 43 seconds available. The British transport system starting now.
In truth, I wasn't aware that the British transport arrangements were still referred to as a system, but it is a very chaotic...
Clement challenge.
Hesitation.
There wasn't there. Right, Clement, another point, and the subject back. 33 seconds. The British transport system starting now.
The British transport system is a epitomized by the M25. It is a circular road which doesn't have moving transport. And what drivers say to each other is, I wonder what happened before we constructed this motorway that circles its way around the metropolis. What would happen, they say. I've said that
Clem,
before.
I know you did.
Yeah.
And you've just challenged yourself.
Yes.
So I have to ask you, Clement, what is your challenge?
I repeated myself.
You are absolutely right. Well listened, yes. You did repeat yourself, so you obviously get a point for a correct challenge. And presumably, therefore, you keep the subject, and there are 9 seconds available. But please don't do it too often. 9 seconds, the British transport system, Clement, starting now.
I have a bus pass which is valid on the 13, the 26.
Pam, challenge.
I thought it was a hesitation. The 13.
My love, no.
Well, I know, I'm getting desperate.
I know. Yes, I can understand that.
I haven't got any points. I haven't got any points, and I want to keep my end up,
Yeah.
Nicholas.
In other words, you wanted to challenge him before he challenged himself again.
Well, yes, I thought as he's descended to challenging himself, even a weak challenge was worth a go.
I think Pam's reasoning deserves a bonus point. But as Clement wasn't, strictly speaking, hesitating, he keeps the subject and gets another point for being interrupted. And there are, I can't see this watch. 5 seconds starting now.
South, east, west and north are pretty good directions for British transport.
Right. Pam, will you take the next subject? The subject is personal shoppers. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
A personal shopper is a person who tells other people what clothes they ought to be wearing. This may be useful if you have a thick neck, bat wing arms, jodhpur thighs, stumpy legs and enormous feet. But being a woman with a strong, confident sense of her own style, I have never yet needed to act.
Graham, you challenged.
There was a sort of hesitation.
Yes, it was. Correct challenge. A correct challenge. And 37 seconds are still available. Graham, another point to you. And personal shoppers starting now.
Personal shoppers are people who tell you just because you can fit into something, it looks good on you. And then as you leave the shop, go ha-hee-ho. Because you've paid full price for something that makes you look like a black pudding uncooked. It isn't kind. It's a nasty job. They are evil people and should be killed. I think that personal shoppers, dear God, will no one interrupt me.
Pam has interrupted you. Pam, what was your challenge?
I just thought I would.
It was a plea for help.
He said, would nobody interrupt him, so I thought perhaps he hesitated.
Yes, I did.
Oh, thank you. You're very chivalrous.
He says he hesitated, so Pam, from his own admission, you take over the subject. 10 seconds to go. Personal shoppers starting now.
The tremendous advantage of personal shoppers is that they introduce you to a range of range which you otherwise would probably...
Marcus, challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge based on not knowing what a raiment is.
It's similar.
So I'm not confidently saying that Pam got something wrong. I'm just saying I don't know that word.
Well, as far as I'm aware, it's from the Bible. He rent his raiments.
So if you'd read your Bible, you would have known what you were talking about.
Right.
Did you keep his receipt? Did he bring back his raiment? This raiment is quite shoddy.
Well, Marcus, as you haven't played the game, and
Is it a real word?
yes, it is.
Is it? Oh, good.
Yes, it's another word for clothing. It's
another word for garment.
Apparel. Apparel's another good one.
Another
You know
power.
apparel?
I do, yes.
Apparel, yes.
Thank you, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Try and stick to
Top. Top is another word for clothes.
Yes.
Try
And I think
It's good to know several words for the same thing in this game, isn't it?
Yes, right. And the raiment that you're wearing at the moment is particularly fetching. You're
Thank you
a man
very much.
who's into corduroy, aren't you?
I do love a bit of corduroy.
Right. Well, we'll give him a bonus point because he hasn't played the game very much before.
Oh, wow.
Does anyone know another word for patronising?
That wasn't patronising.
Condescending's not the same.
We enjoyed hearing from you so much.
Bless you, sir.
Your interruption was so enjoyable. I was just carried away with the fun we had. So I thought you'd give you a bonus point for that. Pam gets a point because she has an incorrect challenge. Keeps the subject. 3 seconds available. Personal shoppers are starting now.
Personal shoppers make no charge for this.
So Pam, speaking as a whistle when gain that extra point, and the situation, if you're interested, is Clement Freud is just in the lead, one ahead of Graham, and he's 2 ahead of Pam, and Pam's 2 ahead of Marcus. That's the situation as Marcus takes the next round. Marcus, the subject here we have is toddlers. Tell us something about toddlers in this game starting now.
I've got toddlers, and the experience is deeply unpleasant. They can walk while they're toddlers, but only in the direction that their massive head takes them. They haven't really developed a sense of balance at that stage, or any desire to sleep beyond about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, when they toddle into your room and wake you up with a great big smile saying, "Hello, Daddy," and you have to pretend to be pleased to see them. You then spend the rest of the day toddling yourself because you're so exhausted you can't really walk properly. They are also positioned...
Graham challenge.
Was there a repetition of walk?
Yes, because they walk
The
into
audience has
your room.
spoken. Yes, they cry. We're playing as a team. Well done, audience.
Graham. He said, yes, they walk into your room and
true.
they walk.
Yes.
That's
They do.
right. So, Graham, you had a correct challenge. You listened well. 26 seconds starting. Toddlers starting now.
All I know of toddlers is that they're very needy. They want things constantly. And what do you get back? Nothing at all. Even when they get older, they present bits of old wool and say it's a gift and want something shiny in a box in return. It's not right. That's why there are no toddlers in my house, but a very large, gay, furry baby I call a dog.
Norton speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point and he's increased his lead at the end of the round. Graham, did you say you had a gay dog?
No. It's just my gay furry baby. It's a dog.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
I just wondered what the difference between a gay dog and a straight dog was.
Very little.
And Graham, it's also your turn to begin. And the subject now is American slang. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
American slang is bad, by which I mean good. That's an example of American slang. Things that are cool can be hot. If it's hip, it's not a word meaning a replacement. No. It indicates some...
Marcus challenge.
Yes, it was a sort of hesitation involving a grinding down to just clucking noises eventually.
You made your point, Marcus.
Yes.
Hesitation. No. A correct challenge to you. You take over the subject. Marcus, I've got him there. 45 seconds, American slang, starting now.
Of course, linguistically, there are lots of differences between British people and the Americans. They have lots of words that mean almost nothing to us.
Clement challenge.
Repetition of lots.
Lots. You did repeat the word lots.
Yeah, but there are quite a few people in both countries, so it's hard to know what to do about it.
But you can't say the word twice in this round.
Yeah. No,
right.
I'm going to write that down, actually.
Clement, another point to you for a correct challenge. 37 seconds. American slang, starting now.
I don't know anything about American slang.
Pam, challenge. Pam, you challenge first.
I did think it was a hesitation.
It was a hesitation.
I did. I've got very few marks, so I'm fighting for my life here, Clement. I'm sorry about that.
You're doing very well. You're equal with Marcus.
Oh, goody.
And you're only... And you're only 3 behind Clement Freud. It's not bad.
Yes,
and he's
well.
played it quite a lot of times.
Yes,
Right.
that's true. Yes, I am something of a virgin.
Are you? I don't think you should bring your private life into this. Pam, there are 33 seconds. Tell us something about American slang, starting now.
During the Second World War, in the village of Stamford-in-the-Vale in North Berkshire, a huge number...
Marcus challenge.
Yes, a hesitation.
It was a hesitation, Marcus. You have the subject. You have 28 seconds. American slang, starting now.
Democracy is not a word that means a great deal in America, whilst, of course, over here we use it and understand basically what it means.
Graham, challenge.
I would say deviation, because that isn't slang in either country.
No, you haven't introduced the slang into this at all.
Yeah, Marcus, where's the slang? We've only got a minute here. Come on, keep it moving.
Yes. No, I think it's deviation. You didn't establish early enough you were talking about American slang.
Yeah, it was really bad.
No, you're talking...
Bad meaning good?
Yeah.
Talking about wicked.
So, Graham, another correct challenge, another point, and American slang is back with you starting now.
Yo is a way of saying hello. Recently, I met P. Diddy, or Puff Daddy, or some man in glasses with a lot of diamonds on.
Clement, challenge.
3 oars.
You're not wrong.
I know, tough challenge, but correct.
Yes.
Ooh.
You may go, ooh, but you try rowing a boat with that number. Just round in circles.
American slangs, back to you, Clement, and 11 seconds starting now.
In East Anglia, I know several practitioners of American slang, both in Essex, Suffolk, Norfolk, and Lincolnshire, and especially such people...
Marcus, challenge.
Yeah, deviation. You said both and then listed more than 2 things.
Clement, you've had people on grammar before now, in fact, in this show.
I'm a sly fox. I pretend to be thick, but I'm not. I am it.
So the glasses are not just there for effect. Both, yes, 2 and a number. And you've got in with 1 second to go on American slang, starting now.
American slang.
So Marcus Brigstocke was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's moved forward. He's just ahead of Pam Ayres. He's one behind Clement Freud, and Graham Norton still in the lead. And Pam, we're back with you to start. The subject now is summer holidays. 60 seconds starting now.
I have had many summer holidays, all chosen.
Clement, challenge.
Repetition.
It's a repetitious thought, Clement, that she was not repeating any words or anything like that. It's a lovely idea, so Pam gets another point for that. No, it's all right, you've still got it, my darling.
Have I?
Yes, you have.
I'm afraid I got lost there. What did I say 2 minutes? Did I say, oh, you're just being cantankerous?
Oh, look at them flirting.
Yes, an incongruous couple.
Jealous,
right,
you're only
there we
jealous.
are.
You're only jealous because there's no action down your end.
And hasn't been for a long time.
I'm doing my best.
I think we should move on.
I'll be your big gay dog if you like.
A point to Pam, because it wasn't a correct challenge, and she still has summer holidays and 57 seconds starting now.
Everything went wrong. Delayed flights, so-called villas situated beside thundering motorways, along which a river of hateful, hornet-like little motorbikes stormed morning, noon and night. Filthy swimming pools without a filtration plant and blocked drains.
Marcus, challenge.
I don't know whether it's deviation, but you can't realistically expect an entire filtration plant to be attached to a swimming pool.
Marcus, explain. I mean,
it was a big swimming pool.
Was it?
It was an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Was it a village beside a sewage plant?
Why complain about the villa?
No, I don't accept that. I think plant is a filtration plant. I've heard it many times, and I defend my right to say it.
That's right. And even if it wasn't, that was what you referred to it as, wasn't it? That's what you called it while you were over there on that holiday. Yes.
Yes, Nicholas.
and also, Pam was saying there wasn't a filtration plant.
Absolutely. So.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Pam, it's an incorrect challenge. You keep the subject.
Thank you.
Summer holidays, 36 seconds, starting now.
Had it not been for the valiant efforts of my brother-in-law on his hands and knees with a metal coat hanger, we would have had no sanitation whatsoever. I am never doing that again. My dream holiday would be to go horse riding on a pleasant old nag that liked me, did not bite me with his yellow teeth, or kick my shins to matchwood with his iron-shod feet. Together we would plod through fragrant woodlands, alive with bird song and babbling water. I've run out of steam.
So Pam Ayres, speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so. And, wait, let me get the score, because I've just heard that we are going into the final round.
Oh.
I thought you might have groaned a bit more than that. So let me give you the score as we do that, because it's very close. Graham Norton is still just in the lead. Clement Freud follows, only 3 or 4 points behind, but then equal together still, 1 point behind Clement, Pam Ayres and Marcus Brigstocke.
Oh,
so
goody.
it's still quite a close contest if
Gosh,
you're
it's
interested in the
tense.
work. And Marcus, your turn to begin. The subject. Oh, topical for us at this particular moment, hosepipes. Tell us something about hosepipes in this game, starting now.
There was an announcement about these just recently that had the last few remaining teddy boys who live in my area extremely worried. Of course, they then realised it wasn't about drain pipes, but hose pipes. So they cheered up immediately. There's a ban on the use of hose pipes at the moment because the water companies basically can't be bothered to mend any of their underground pipes. They're too busy creaming off all of the money and giving it to their lovely shareholders who refuse to invest in the people who would be mending these pipes and therefore making double bubble at both ends of the pipe itself, effectively. So I shan't be using my hose pipe this summer at all on account of I do not...
Graham challenge.
Repetition of pipe.
Yes, you're quite right, because the subject on the card is hose pipe.
So in fact, a repetition of a single pipe would make pipes, wouldn't it? Is that a stretch?
Yeah, very shrewd observation, but it doesn't work in just a minute, I'm afraid, Marcus.
Stream on.
No. So, Graham, yes, we have to grant you that as a correct challenge and say that you have hose pipes to talk about, I should say. 21 seconds starting now.
Hose pipes are banned, but I don't quite understand why that prevents water getting to your garden. You could train a small animal, perhaps, to take a mouthful of that substance, H2O, and trot into the yard and then spit it on a plant. Oh, and how much more fun that would be.
So Graham Norton, speaking as the whistle went, gained the extra point, and with that strange idea of his dog watering his garden from the mouth.
Well, you made it sound dirty and wrong now, Nicholas.
Why did you just say use a watering can, which you're allowed to use, a watering can? That's permitted. Anyway, give me the final score. Pam Ayres and Marcus Brigstocke equal together, but only just in third place, because they're equal. And 1 point behind Clement Freud, who did extraordinarily well, as usual. But a few points out in the lead was Graham Norton, so we say, Graham, you're the winner this week. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 delightful players of the game, Graham Norton, Marcus Brigstocke, Pam Ayres and Clement Freud. I thank Charlotte Davis, who's helped me with the score and blown her whistle with, well, she blew it with some aplomb. And we thank our producer, Claire Jones. We are indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this delightful game. We're very grateful to this lovely audience here at the Mermaid Theatre down on Puddle Dock who've cheered us on our way. Thank you from my audience. Thank you from me, Nicholas Parsons, and from our panel. Tune in, listeners, the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but throughout the world, but also to welcome to the program 4 exciting, talented performers who are going to show their skill and expertise as they speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And they are, seated on my right, that master of improvised ad-lib comedy, Paul Merton, and seated beside him, we have that mistress of sophisticated, spontaneous humour, Sue Perkins, and seated on my left we have another improvised comedian and also comedy writer, Tony Hawkes, and seated beside him we have someone who's escaped from the confines of Ambridge to show that he has a way with improvised humour. That is Charles Collingwood. Would you please welcome all 4 of them? Beside me is Charlotte Davis, who's going to help me keep the score. She'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the magnificent Theatre Royal in the heart of that fine city of Newcastle, in that great area of the British Isles, Tyneside. Well, over here... And we have a real Geordie audience waiting us to cheer us on our way. I think we'll... Paul, the subject I have in front of me is how to get a good night's sleep. Well, don't listen to Nicholas Parsons doing his dialects. 60 seconds starting now.
How to get a good night's sleep? Some experts recommend activity during the day. Try and wear your brain and body out. When I go to sleep at night, I tend to listen to old CDs, Paul Temple cases, written by Francis Durbridge, recorded by the British Broadcasting Corporation from the 40s onwards. They're rather complicated stories with twisted narratives.
Charles Collingwood.
Repetition of stories.
Yes, there was another story.
Was
before.
there?
Yes, there was indeed, yes. Charles told the stories. So, Charles, you have a correct challenge, well listened, and you get a point for that, of course. You take over the subject, and you have 41 seconds available. How to get a good night's sleep, starting now.
Now, this is the trick I have. I find the best way of getting a good night's sleep is to think about our chairman, Nicholas Parsons, and his career. And I go back to the days when he was starring with Arthur Haynes, and as his career moves on, I suddenly...
Paul, challenge.
A repetition of career.
And what a pity, I was enjoying it. Yes.
But I was nearly asleep, actually. There was just...
Oh, well, all right. You spoiled it all now, Charles.
Sorry, Nicholas.
I thought you were a friend. Right. You have a correct challenge, Paul. You have a point. You have 27 seconds. Take back how to get a good night's sleep, starting now.
Drink an entire bottle of whiskey, and you'll soon find that the sleep will... What happened there?
Tony Hawk's challenge this time.
I think he used a word from the Azerbaijani dictionary.
That's right. So we interpret that as hesitation. Tony, you have a correct challenge. You have 21 seconds, a point, of course. How to get a good night's sleep, starting now.
I've never understood it when people say they've had a good night's sleep, they say they've slept like a...
Whoops. So, Sue, you've challenged.
Repetition of say.
Yes?
Yes. Well, listen, Sue. You get that sort of ripple through the audience when they do it, yes?
I think hostility is the word you're looking for.
No, we're hearing from everybody on the first round, which is lovely. How to get a good night's sleep is now with you, Sue, and 17 seconds available, starting now.
Diazepam, temazepam, skullcap, valerian. If you're feeling in a slightly more homeopathic frame of mind, which I often am of an evening, but if neither of those things work, why not put a bucket on your head and run flat towards a wall?
Tony, you challenge.
I thought there was a slight hesitation.
I know, before she put the bucket on her head.
Yeah.
I mean...
I was disorientated.
I know. I could feel it. You just didn't know where you were. But Tony's got in with another correct challenge, and 6 seconds available. How to get a good night's sleep, Tony, starting now.
Drinking a bottle of any kind of alcoholic beverage will assist...
Paul challenge.
Well, if you drink a miniature, that won't make any difference. So drinking a bottle of any,
I think that's a
deviation, isn't it?
I think that's a clear. I have to give you the benefit of the doubt, yes. Paul, you've cleverly got in with 2 seconds to go on this subject, starting now.
Make yourself a milky drink late at night.
Whoever is speaking this game, when the whistle goes, gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Paul Merton, and he has got 3 at the end of the round. Tony has 2, the others both have 1, and we move on to Sue Perkins to begin the next round. Sue, the subject is footsie. Tell us something about footsie in this game, starting now.
Whatever you do, don't make the mistake that I...
There was a bit of hesitation there.
I know, it's a bit meaty, hardly got going.
Well, I mean, aren't we playing the game?
And now we must rise and charge against him.
I'll go and listen to the Archers if we're not playing the game.
No, sit down again, Charles. Sit down. Put yourself together. No, it was a correct challenge. But sometimes we're a bit generous at the beginning. But as it was a correct challenge, you have to have it and a point and the subject. 58 seconds. Footsie starting now.
When I ring my broker up every morning, I just try to find out if my shares are doing well.
Sue challenge.
Just wanted to point out he's just now alienated all of Newcastle. Can I have my subject back?
But he
now?
was, of course, speaking as what's your name? Brian, aren't you? Yeah.
If you like, it's got Charles written down here, but
in your character, Brian.
Sorry.
Right, what was your challenge within the rules of just a minute?
Repetition of
nothing. Right. Charles, you have another point.
My.
You keep the subject.
Repetition of my.
Will I phone up my stockbroker to find out how my shares are doing?
Well, as you were so mean to her, I'm going to be mean to you and say, as Paul tipped her off there. But anyway, so Paul will listen. Sue will won. 53 seconds. Back with you now. Footsie starting now.
Don't ever make the mistake of confusing Footsie, the London Share Index, with the under-the-table sexual foreplay game, as I did, whilst running my foot up the inner thigh of the chairman of Glaxo Wellcome. Get out! He shouted, and security were called, and I was dragged thence from the building. Equally, I find it confusing when I'm opposite a partner. They suggest perhaps something...
Charles challenged.
Can I say hesitation now?
You can, but I don't think it was a hesitation. Okay. It was very close, but not close
sorry.
enough.
But you're the judge, so fair enough.
I have to be. Somebody has to judge.
Sorry, Sue.
No, I'm not being mean. I'm always trying to be as fair as I can. Sue, another point to you. 30 seconds. Footsie starting now.
Equally, somebody asked me to play footsie, and I recited the current medical technology stocks and shares at them, which bored them rigid.
Tony challenged.
Did you repeat shares?
No, share index before.
One was singular, the other one was... Sue, you're doing well.
She's having an affair with him.
He's tipping me off.
They're working as a team over there. Right, 23 seconds, Footsie, with you, Sue, starting now. To all you challenged.
Hesitation.
That was clever tactics. You know you were bastard the fact that you helped her. Right. So anyway, Paul, correct challenge, 23 and a half. Footsie's with you, Paul, starting now.
I have a 5-year-old nephew and he can't pronounce the word football because he refers to it as footsie. This is an extraordinary thing for him to do because he doesn't exist. I just made him up. Isn't it odd when we...
Sue, challenge.
Deviating from his normal family structure and inventing a nephew.
Well, the whole point is that he didn't deviate within the rules of just a minute. And you can be as inventive...
You can invent nephews, can't you, Nicky?
Yes, all right.
You can be as surreal as you like.
Nephews.
But outside of this game...
If you were to say he definitely hasn't got a nephew, then none of us could dispute it. He might be able to produce one. So I think I have to give the benefit...
Paul is now making a nephew.
No, you can be as inventive as you like and go into the realm of the surreal, which is possible.
I had a barbecue recently and Paul said he couldn't come because he was spending the day with his 5-year-old nephew.
That's when he first entered the world.
Anyway, you only have the benefit of the doubt on this one, so you keep the subject. 11 seconds. Footsie starting now.
As I looked into her eyes, and she in turn viewed...
Sue, challenge.
I thought he was a nephew. He's changed gender.
We didn't establish it was a...
behind.
He'd gone off into a different realm
He
now.
existed purely for comedic purposes.
Yes. Gone off into a different voice. A different sort of... So that challenge was incorrect, so Paul has still 7 seconds on footsie starting now.
I remember the very first time I engaged in the activity of footsie while flying in a plane. 5,000 feet up in the air...
So Paul got points in that round, including 1 for speaking as the whistle went, and he's increased his lead over the other 3. And Charles Collingwood, will you take the next round? A perfect subject for you, Charles. Admiral Collingwood. You have 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
As everybody in this wonderful theatre knows, Admiral Lord Collingwood is the son of this wonderful city.
Tony challenged.
I didn't know that.
All right, well, what I do there is I give Tony a bonus point because we enjoyed his interruption, but Charles gets a point because he was interrupted.
Can we have longer than a minute? I need to learn a lot about this.
Right. He's got 54 seconds to inform you as he carries on with Admiral Collingwood starting now.
Indeed, Tony is right, because I thought this evening it should be called Just a Quarter of an Hour, because there's no way I can possibly describe this man of the salt in...
Sue, challenge.
Repetition of this.
I'm sorry, Sue, this is the son of this city. These people... Admiral Collingwood means so much to these people. How you feel you can mention... Am I not right, ladies and gentlemen? Yes! Was he not greater than Nelson?
No! Charles, you've mistaken this for a rally.
Yes.
No, I haven't.
She's allowed to talk about him now. That's the point. It's her turn.
And I've no idea who he is.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens, because I will give you a bonus point because the audience enjoyed your tirade and the emotion that you evoked. So Charles gets a bonus point, Sue gets a point for her correct challenge, and she has 46 seconds on Admiral Collingwood starting now.
Paul's 5-year-old nephew came up to me the other day and said...
Charles, challenge.
That's a complete waste of time if we're going to have Admiral Collingwood starting to even mention Paul's nephew. It's only now about 40 seconds left about this great man. Give these people a chance.
Charles,
they had little enough chance last year. Look at it. Look at the reaction.
I think you should withdraw to the pigsties in Pennyhassett or something, but they have been... She probably is about to say...
I'm about to go
she's
in.
about to say about his nephew came up and said, did you tell me something about Admiral Collingwood?
Yes. Sorry, I'll take a tablet, I'm sorry.
He still talks very excitedly about that conversation.
Yes. Another point to Sue Perkins. 43 seconds, Admiral Collingwood. Sue, starting now.
Who is Admiral Collingwood? He said to me, his eyes wide opened, and I turned round, laid a hand on his shoulder and said, do you know what? I have no idea whatsoever. But every time his name is mentioned in this beautiful theatre, a cheer erupts.
Charles, challenge.
Repetition of theatre.
Yeah, you did mention theatre before.
No, did you?
It was mentioned before.
It was mentioned by you,
I've never
actually.
known a crowd turn more quickly between booing and hissing to then just feeling sorry for me. I'm loving it.
They're playing with us, aren't they?
So, Sue, you have another point because you didn't mention theatre before.
Oh.
Sorry, Sue.
That's
Sorry.
all right.
And you have 31 seconds. Carry on with Admiral Collingwood starting now.
But let not the...
Paul, challenge.
Repetition of... Second time in a row.
Yeah. She does that little sort of funny crispy thing with him.
Yeah. It's very enchanting, but repetitious.
Yes. And great after one.
I think, Paul, that would be very unfair to take it away from her. I don't think you should start like that again, Sue. I think Paul's interruption was just too dramatic. But he gets a bonus point because they loved what he said. But you get the benefit of the doubt. No, not him, it's her. Sue has the subject still. 30 seconds.
Shows he can still identify genders.
It's abbreviation. Admiral Collingwood is still with you, Sue. 30 seconds starting now.
I said.
That was a definite repetition.
So, Tony.
If I'd gone I'd sound like I was revving up a motorcycle.
It was a repetition of...
Yeah.
You made that sound. It was a repetitious sound. It went on and on and on. I've given you 3 benefits of the doubt. So Tony Hawks has the benefit of the doubt now. Tony, benefit of the doubt to you. Poor Charles is sitting there so deep in neurosis he wants to talk about it.
Well, it's such an insult to the great man to have people going brrr and things like that. It's dreadful, but the audience understands, don't you? Just nod.
You'll be all right. You're in safe hands, don't you?
Tony, benefit of the doubt to you, so you have a point for that. 29 seconds, Admiral Collingwood starting now.
The Admiral Collingwood is a beautiful pub in Hartlepool where I go and spend evenings of footsie they have on there, which is fantastic fun, where everyone gets together. They put their little legs...
Paul Towns.
Hesitation.
Yes, Paul. 19 seconds, you tell us something about Admiral Collingwood starting now.
One of the most famous homosexuals of his day. He never...
Charles, your challenge.
That was such deviation from, may I say...
It may be deviation then, but now it's an accepted sexual practice. Yes. And we need to move on.
Be proud. It was deviation from a deviant, no less.
Right.
How dare you say that about
Charles.
They're all at it, though.
Charles, we have no proof that he didn't have a little bit of a ding-dong with Nelson.
Nelson said, "Kiss me, Hardy," not "Kiss me, Collingwood."
They were all at it. They were queuing to have a crack at
He
Nelson.
didn't say, "Kiss me,
They were
Collingwood," Nicholas.
stuck away for weeks and months on their own on these ships. But exactly.
He had one eye, he couldn't
They
see
had
all
to
the
get
time.
some emotional relief.
I know, it was jolly good fun.
But Charles, out of fairness to you, I've given benefits to the doubt around. You have the benefit of the doubt on this occasion because you're dying to get the subject back. 16 seconds. All quiet, please. Charles Collingwood on Admiral Collingwood.
Admiral Lord Collingwood, whose name was Cuthbert, but whose nickname was Cutty, had no sons. He had 2 daughters.
Paul
That's
Charles.
proving my point.
Actually, I must be fair. Sue actually pressed her buzzer before you,
did she?
and I ignored it. What was your challenge, Sue?
Well, the repetition of his full name. Actually, it's only...
he did repeat the word
Lord.
Lord. Yes, right.
The Lord is not in
And the
there.
subject on the card is Admiral Collingwood when he
Yes.
repeated Lord.
Yeah.
So you were correct, Sue.
Yes, boo me, but you'll cheer later. And then hiss.
10 seconds. Tell us something more about Admiral Collingwood. 10 seconds, Sue, starting now.
The finest gadabout gay of his time did indeed have no sons, but a couple of prize daughters.
Charles' challenge.
A repetition of sons.
Yeah, no, it was...
No, because she said sons.
She
Just
said-
so angry,
I
Nicholas.
know, I know.
I wish I had some deodorant. I really do. I'm coming out in such a sweat here.
Yes, I'm...
I mean, I do agree that he wasn't a rampant homosexual. So maybe...
Admiral, let's face
It was
you know.
deviation, Nicholas. You must know that.
Yes, I
I
do.
was talking about his daughters.
He's buried in St. Paul's, for God's sake.
I know.
He wasn't a rampant homosexual.
And as a great Charles, as you want to finish on this subject, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt for deviation for what Sue said, and you have 5 seconds. Please don't interrupt him. 5 seconds. Admiral Collingwood starting now.
There was a pub in this city.
Oh, you said that?
Just testing.
Paul.
Hesitation. Yeah. Hesitate. This, you know. That's all, folks. Do you know what I mean?
I said please don't interrupt
I
him.
was just testing him out.
Oh, right.
Sorry.
He did hesitate. Paul,
He did.
correct challenge. 3 seconds. Admiral Collingwood starting now.
As his eyes scanned the horizon, looking for the prettiest boy in Portsmouth.
Paul was speaking as the whistle went. He's now... Oh, Sue's catching up. She got a lot of points in that round. Oh, no, Paul's got another one. Charlotte's just given it to him. I'll put it in there, yes, because he was speaking as the whistle went, so he's gone up to 10, right. Sue's on 9, Charles is on 6, Tony's on 4. And just before we carry on, Charles, can you very briefly tell us anything else about Admiral Charles Collingwood to just dispel the terrible things that have been said about him by the rest of this...
Well, all these people know about him, so that's good. But in fact, he was born here, he went to school here, he went to the Navy when he was 12, he was second in command to Nelson at Trafalgar, and when Nelson died, Collingwood took over the Battle of Trafalgar and won. He became head of the British fleet, and he didn't see his wife or his 2 daughters for the last 4 years of his life, and he had...
A bonus point to Charles Collingwood. And finally, are you related?
I am.
Oh, how exciting.
Yes.
Well, if you'd given me Anthony Perkins to have talked about.
Right. Oh, yes, it had to be, didn't it? Geordies. Oh, there's some...
Wait till you hear what I'm going to say.
Right, Geordies. 60 seconds, Paul, starting now.
It's traditionally one of the hardest accents and dialects to master if you're not actually from this area. One tip, if you mention 2 of Walt Disney's characters, it does help to get your tongue around the vowel sounds. I'll give you the example, Mickey Mouse and Pluto. Now, that is how you do the other ways of perhaps being able to do this is mention famous composers like Shostakovich.
Oh, that was brilliant stuff, Paul.
I did
We'd
my
love
best.
to continue, but unfortunately, you dried yourself up and you paused, and Tony challenged first. So, Tony, you have 37 seconds on Geordies, starting now.
One of my favourite Geordies has to be Paul Gascoigne, not just because of the contributions he made on the football pitch, but because of his records. Oh, they were wonderful.
Paul, challenge.
Because, repetition of because.
Because. Paul, you have Geordies back, and more of it, please. 28 seconds, starting now.
Schopenhauer. He was another one who wrote beautiful music in the 19th century. And as you walk around Newcastle, I was only here 3 weeks ago on a Friday night, having played one of the other theatres in this beautiful city, and you notice that when it gets to about midnight, people start coming into the...
Charles, you challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, well, whatever it was, yes, right.
Hesitation.
11 seconds on Geordies with you, Charles, starting now.
My favourite Geordie plays cricket for Durham, and his name's Paul Collingwood. What a surprise that was. But, of course, there are lots of others.
Paul challenged.
Is he related to the Admiral?
No.
Paul, enjoyed the interruption. It's only fair to give you a bonus point because it wasn't a correct challenge. But you get a point for an incorrect challenge, Charles, and you have 4 seconds on Geordies starting now.
Paul was quite correct.
Tony challenge.
Repetition of Paul.
Paul Collingwood.
Oh!
Because that is not the subject on the card, Paul Collingwood. It is Geordies, and you've got him with 3 seconds on Geordies, Tony, starting now.
The fog on the Tyne is all mine, all mine.
Yes, you're very lucky there because you were saying mine as the whistle went. And Sue actually challenged. It was for that, wasn't it, Sue?
It was indeed.
It's a difficult decision to make. So Sue better have a bonus point because she did actually challenge on the mine as the whistle went. So that's the only fair thing to do. Tony gets the point for speaking as the whistle went. Now it's all fair square.
Charles, do you have any other relatives we should know about now?
I'll just drop them in throughout the evening.
So Tony Hawkes and Paul Merton are equal in the lead, followed in equal in second place Sue Perkins and Charles Collingwood. How very fair. And we're moving into the final round. Ooh. Sue, will you tell us something about Catherine Cookson? She's the next subject we have on this show, starting now.
Catherine Cookson is a fine novelist from this great region, and indeed her books count for 1/3 of total library borrowings. In Tilly Trotter, which was a book we had at Croydon, I seem to remember it had huge letters, it was a large print book, and it was the only book you could read book across the road.
Tony, you challenge first. You have a correct challenge. 47 seconds. Catherine Cookson starting now.
It's a little-known fact that Catherine Cookson is also a magnificent biographer and wrote one about the Admiral Collingwood, which Charles read many years ago, and he believed many of the lies that was...
Sue, challenge.
Repetition of many.
Yes. Right. Well done, Sue. Correct challenge. 35 seconds. Back with you, Catherine Cookson, starting now.
Her books were so huge, my grandmother...
Tony, challenge.
Repetition of books.
Yes. Tony, we're listening well.
Said books as well, though.
Possibly.
You did say books.
I'm just in a loop now.
Right. 33 seconds, Catherine Cookson, starting now.
My friend Catherine is a fanatical cook. Catherine cooks on and on, and...
Charles, your challenge.
I had 2 ons. We can't have on and on.
Well, one of them was in Cook's On, you see.
No. Catherine Cooks. No, it wasn't. Catherine Cooks on and on.
You don't know anything about Catherine Cookson either, do you?
No, I don't.
You're right.
I can't be able to argue. I know nothing
you're right.
about it.
You're right, Charles. He did separate the on from the cooks, and there were 2 ons, so you have a correct challenge. 26 seconds. Catherine Cookson starting now.
Now, I have to confess I know very little about Catherine Cookson, but I did have an uncle who was Archer Cookson, who...
Sue, challenge.
Please make it stop.
What's your challenge within the rules of just a minute?
My challenge is, this is a quintessential parlour game which provides entertainment for all. It is not an excuse to wheel in your family tree and give everyone a lesson on hereditary.
Well, the thing is, Sue, you can keep going in any way you wish in just a minute. And
we've had his nephew and all that. What are you talking about, Sue?
Providing it's interesting or entertaining, and we keep going and don't hesitate, repeat anything or deviate.
Keeping going is the best option, I think.
Keeping going. Incorrect challenge, Charles. You have another point. Catherine Cookson, 20 seconds, right. Starting now.
It may be only 20 seconds to you, Nicholas, but for me to talk about Catherine Cookson, it will feel a total age, because I know absolutely zilch.
Tony, challenge.
I think he said, I know very little about her when he first started.
That's what he did.
So repetition of no.
That's right. He said, I know nothing about her. Now it's no, absolutely.
Well, how right I was.
Yeah. Fortunately, I know lots about her.
Well, you've got 11 seconds to tell us.
I haven't started yet.
You've got...
The beauty of life is you can repeat things outside of the game. Although I try not to.
So, Tony, but you've got 11 seconds inside the game to tell us more about Catherine Cookson, starting now.
I had the great privilege of meeting Catherine Cookson.
Paul Challenge.
Well, you've said you know nothing about her. Now you suddenly reveal at the end of this that you actually met the woman, and yet you have not gleaned any personal information to give us anecdotes. You've talked about, I don't know this, I don't know that.
I'm about to explain.
Oh, you're about to explain. When? Next week? When's that going to happen?
No, I think that's a sound challenge. You
Was
did
she
establish...
gagged at the time?
Well, hang on. I might have been about to say, and she refused to tell me anything at all whatsoever.
Tony, just the obvious. The mere fact that you met her means you could not say you know nothing about Catherine Cookson.
You know what she looks
you've
like.
met her.
Well, I've got
colour's her
14
hair?
nephews.
No, I think the
fibbing,
benefit...
fibbing isn't a offence
The
in this
benefit,
game.
the benefit of that to Paul, a point to him and the subject, 7 seconds. Catherine Cookson starting now.
One of her most famous novels is also, again, one of those phrases that helps you to say a Geordie accent. Terracotta pots. And that was a wonderful book.
So Paul, speaking as a whistle when, gained that last point. So let me give you the final situation. Sue Perkins, who did so extraordinarily well.
But ended so badly.
No, you haven't ended badly at all. You've ended alongside Charles Collingwood, and that can't be bad.
No.
Both bring up the rear.
You brought up the rear, but what wonderful rears you both brought up. And
Was he Rear Admiral Collingwood, by the way? Was he Rear Admiral Collingwood? Vice. It's worse. It's Vice.
He was
Vice Admiral.
He became a Vice Admiral, then a Rear Admiral, and finished up as a Full Admiral.
Oh.
And certainly when he took over from Nelson, as Charles said, he was a Full Admiral by then. But Charles and Sue finished equal in second place. So therefore, you've realised we have out in the lead, just ahead of them, two people who won in first place, which is Paul Merton and Tony Hawke. So we say they're the joint winners this week. Thank you. Thank you. It only remains for me to say thank you to these four intrepid players of the game, Paul Merton, Sue Perkins, Tony Hawkes and Charles Collingwood. And I say thank you to our lovely whistleblower who's helped me with the score as well, that is Charlotte Davis. We thank our producer-director, who is Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this lovely game. And we're deeply indebted to this lovely audience here at the Theatre Royal in Newcastle. So from them, and from me, Nicholas Parsons, and from the panel, goodbye. Don't forget to tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Till then, goodbye! Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my pleasure to welcome our many listeners in this country and, of course, throughout the world, but also to welcome to the programme for talented and skillful players of the game who've come together to show their verbal ingenuity and dexterity, their comic inventiveness as they speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And they are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Clement Freud, and seated on my left, Julian Clary and Pauline McLynn. Would you please welcome all four of them? Beside me sits Charlotte Davis, who's going to help me keep a note of the score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from Greenwich Theatre. Let's begin this show with Clement Freud. Clement, the dome. Tell us something about the dome. In Just a Minute, starting now.
A dome is a hemispheric structure, traditionally, architecturally.
That's the effect the dome has on everybody.
Yeah.
Julian, you challenge.
Hesitation, I'd have
Yes,
thought.
it was hesitation. So you have 53 seconds available. The dome starting now.
The dome is a triumph of architectural design, but what are people going to do with it, we wonder? I know, we could play table tennis there. I'll be the red bat, you can be the blue bat, and we can...
And Clement challenge.
Bat.
Too many bats. Clement, you've got the subject back. You have a correct challenge. A point, of course. The dome is with you now. 42 seconds starting now.
It is Coptic, Byzantine, and St. Paul's, the British Museum are fine examples. Now, in Greenwich, there is a dome which was erected for the Festival of Britain in whenever it was. And I remember the first occasion because everybody was stuck in the underground stations.
Paul challenged.
I don't think this was for the Festival of Britain.
No, it wasn't.
That was 1951, wasn't it?
That was 1951. The Festival of Britain was 1951.
Yeah, so deviation.
It was deviation, yes.
Yeah.
Clement, it was an incorrect statement, and Paul Merton had a correct challenge, and he has the dome with 21 seconds to go, starting now.
Of course, the Labour Party were blamed, but I believe it was the Tories who first came up with the idea of a Millennium Dome, and there it is indeed, striking in on the...
Julian challenged.
Stumbling, generally hesitating.
That's right. We call that hesitation. Julian, so you have the subject, everybody so far speaking on this one, and you have a point, 9 seconds still available. The dome starting now.
It's a dreadful thing. I think it's an awful mistake that it was ever built in the first place.
And Paul challenged.
This is deviation. A minute ago you were saying it was wonderful. Now it's dreadful.
Yes.
I've had a rethink.
Is he allowed to do that?
I think, yes, actually. I mean, it's devious from what he said before.
Yeah,
but
isn't it,
on the
John?
other hand, he can change his mind, can't
Can he?
So, yes, I would have thought so.
All right.
I think I have to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I'll try to redress it if I can,
That'd be
Paul,
nice.
later. 5 seconds. The dome with you, Julian, starting now.
The good thing about it is that you can see it from an aeroplane.
Well, hang on a
Paul
minute. It's good, it's bad, the good thing. I mean, you know, there's no consistent line here at all.
This time...
Knock it down, celebrate it. What's going on?
No, it's all right, Paul. You made
It's
your
all
point.
over the place.
You have it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And you have 3 seconds and another point, of course. The dome starting now.
Think of an upside-down wok, and that is the dome.
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Paul Merton, and you won't be surprised to hear at the end of that round he's got a strong lead over the other three. And the sex subject is, oh, it's a lovely subject, malapropisms. Julian, will you start us off on this one? 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Like an alligator on the banks of the Nile is a fine example of a malapropism, although...
Pauline Challenge.
It's not. The line you're thinking of is like an allegory on the banks of the Nile.
That's correct.
An alligator might well be seen on the banks of the Nile.
You made your point, darling.
Sorry, I'm just banging it home, you know. I'm learning from Paul Merton.
You've learned none of that, but you're displaying your knowledge as well. Well done. You have a point for a correct challenge. I should explain to our listeners this is only the second time that Pauline McLynn has played this game. And so she's thrilled to be in with the subject. And there are 55 seconds and a point, of course. Malapropism starting now.
My dad used to drink in a bar called Brennan's on the docks in Galway, and he had a friend who once accused my mother of having her metropause. That same guy tried to tell us a story once about buying a sack of potatoes, but he didn't have any money, so he also was looking for some collateral with which to swap them. He was a marvellous man for malapropisms. Of course...
Julian Challenge.
Repetition of man.
Oh, yes.
Well, you can't have enough of them, really, can you?
Correct challenge, Julian. 33 seconds. Tell us something about malapropism starting now.
I once saw Hilda Baker at the Lewisham Concert Halls, obviously before she died, and she was very big on malapropisms, and she came out and she said, "What are you insinuating?" Which amused me no end, and she also said things like...
Clement Challenge.
Two saids.
He said, she said. Clement, correct challenge, malapropisms, and there are 18 seconds starting now.
Mrs. Malaprop was a character in Sheridan's The Rivals, and liked using long words and got them wrong because she had hardly any intelligence at all. She preferred...
Paul Challenge.
Well, we had an R there, which is generally hesitation. Hesitation.
There was a hesitation, definitely, Paul. So you have malapropisms, and you have 6 seconds starting now.
Hilda Baker, as Julian mentioned, was famous for this. She'd say, "There I was, lying prostitute on the ground," and that was the one of hers, and everybody roared.
On this occasion, Paul Merton was again speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and with others in the round, he's increased his lead at the end of the round. Pauline, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is how to improve your self-esteem. You have 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I think the only true way to improve your self-esteem is to trash other people. I think if you belittle the other person so much, you'll start to feel better about yourself. Another way of improving your self-esteem is to buy clothes that are at least 2 sizes too big. In that way, you can say, oh, look at this, it's hanging off me. And people will say, you have lost so much weight, you look fantastic, thereby improving your self-esteem. I find if I make up a CV...
Clement challenge.
That's the second I find, Fred.
Yes, you are finding too much.
I just search in life so much. Too much. You're
I
right.
know. But they love what you said. You had them hanging on the edge of their seats.
I gave some good tips there,
You
didn't
did.
I?
Yeah, you did. Clement, a correct challenge, and you got how to improve your self-esteem. 29 seconds starting now.
A very good way of improving your self-esteem is to become a serial suicide bomber. It is quite extraordinary if you say, this is my 3rd go. How impressed people are. There are obviously other ways of improving your self-esteem, like buying larger clothes and making people think that you've lost weight. Goodness.
Pauline challenge.
Strictly speaking, he's repeating a tip that I gave
I know
there
you are.
earlier, isn't he? I know it not in the same words, but same subject. I know you know
the
what I
trouble
mean?
is, within the rules of just a minute, you can repeat what other people have said.
These rules need to be looked at. That's all I'll say. After all these years, they need to be looked at.
Clement, it was an incorrect challenge, so you get a point for that, and you keep the subject. 7 seconds. How to improve your self-esteem, starting now.
Perhaps the very best way of improving your self-esteem is to listen what other people say, and when their challenges are accepted, you get a point.
Clement, the end of that round, you were speaking as the whistle went. You gained that extra point. And you are now just 2 points behind Paul Merton, who's in the lead. Julian, Clary and Pauline McLynn are following equal. And Paul, your turn to begin. The subject is My Life as a Tattooist. I don't know whether this is something that others know about, that we've never heard of, but tell us something about that side of your life, if you can, starting now.
Well, clearly I've never worked as a tattooist, so as soon as I begin to talk on this subject, somebody can get me on deviation. I opened my first booth on Blackpool Pier in 1978. I've tattooed all the stars, Jim Davidson's arse, Tom Cruise's head. I've done the lot. You look at Shirley Bassey, there's no skin left on that woman. She's one great big tattoo. From the front you can see St Paul's Cathedral. When she bends over you can see the Acropolis. It's wonderful. What a woman. When she's up on stage singing Hey Big Spender, you can just move a bra strap there and, oh, you can see Big Ben. It's wonderful. It's always on time as well. How do you manage to do it? I've got no idea. Another one for it is Michael Aspel. When you see him on Antiques Roadshow, you wouldn't know, but underneath his hair, he's got a thing that says Hell's Angel Suicide Squad, which he had done in 1968 when he first hosted a Miss World contest. Of course, lots of us remember Nicholas Parsons in the old days, and I wonder what happened to him. It's amazing, isn't it, when you look at all the people who are around these days, you look at Julian, Clary, wonderful figure of a man, but did you know that if he bends over, you can see, well, I shouldn't really go into that, but what, excuse me, it's extraordinary. Bruce Forsyth has actually got the Brooklyn Bridge from one side of his nipple to the other, and it's fantastic. When he gets up at night, he can, I don't know what I'm talking about. How long has this been going on for?
For someone who's never been a tattooist, that was brilliant. I was very naughty there, Paul. I took the whistle out of Charlotte's mouth, and...
Please, not in front of the children.
and you went for 75 seconds. So you get a point
That's
for
about
speaking...
average, all right, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah. Oh, Pauline. You get a point for speaking when the whistle should have gone.
Yeah.
And you get a bonus point for not being interrupted. And you get another point for speaking for the extra 15 seconds. And as a real tour de force, and one of the great moments of just a minute, and you increased your lead at the end of the round, Paul and Clement, will you take the next round? The subject is a recipe for disaster. 60 seconds starting now.
I would say that a recipe for disaster is to give a pound of meat to Anthony Worrell Thompson and watch him blow it. There are other recipes for disaster, and I could go on mentioning the people we see on cookery programs. Take, for instance, half a pound of allspice And you have a disaster because...
Julian Clary challenge.
Repetition of pound.
Yes, a pound of steak. Right. So, Julian, well, listen, 38 seconds, a recipe for disaster, starting now.
My mother once made a chocolate cake using Bisto, and Auntie Tess was the first person to have a mouthful, and she said, very nice, dear. And then the three children, myself and my sisters, Frances and Beverly, filled our gobs, and we all spat it out on the floor. My mother said, eat it, you ungrateful little brats. And...
Paul challenge.
Repetition of mother.
It was a repetition of mother.
Oh, yes.
My mother, and a recipe for disaster is with you, Paul, and there are 17 seconds starting now.
If you give Nicholas Parsons the contents of a bottle of whiskey, then dress him in women's clothing, and set him out on the streets of Carlisle on a Friday night, then you've got some idea of how he spent his last weekend. What a recipe for disaster. I had to go down...
It's a recipe for getting a cheap laugh and a round of applause, right. But, Paul, they loved it, and you kept going to the
I don't think it's a
wisdom.
cheap laugh at all.
All right.
I think we're telling people what it's really like up here.
An expensive laugh, because you've increased your lead at the end of that round. And, Julian, it's your turn to begin. The subject is the London Marathon. It's just happened recently, just not long before this recording.
Oh,
and
that sort of marathon.
You can take the subject in any way you wish. The 60 seconds are available, starting now.
Yes, I was there jogging away like the rest of them, but never again. All those sweaty bodies and vests, every colour of the rainbow. I know it raises a lot of money for very worthy charities, but in future I will spend my marathon Sunday afternoon doing something a bit more constructive, like a crossword puzzle or a Sudoku, which may take me a bit more time than the
Well, we've deviated. We're wandering away from the subject of the marathon. We're talking about Sudoku.
I'm just weaving my way back to it, which may take me longer than the marathon.
Yes, yeah.
He said he won. Right. 36 seconds, the London Marathon, still with you, Julian, starting now.
The thing to do is eat a banana before you go, because that brings up your...
Brings up your banana level, doesn't it?
Clement to chance.
Hesitation.
There was a hesitation. Yes, Clement, you have 30 seconds now. The London Marathon starting now.
When people said, how is it possible that you at your age can do the marathon, I had to tell them that I have the body of a boy of 18. In my refrigerator.
Paul challenge.
I was going to say deviation, but I do know that Clement does have the body of an 18-year-old boy in his refrigerator, so... I've seen him. Simon, I remember that party round at Clement's place, and he says the drinks are in the fridge, and by the way, say hello to Simon. He's an 18-year-old boy I keep in there.
Right. You actually challenged before he said about the people in the fridge, but anyway, 19 seconds, the London Marathon starting now.
I've got a new boyfriend at the moment. He lives in Clement's fridge, but I've dug a tunnel, so I get in the back of that particular implement, and there we are. We have a kiss amongst the ice cubes, and...
Julian challenge.
It's deviation.
Why?
Well, what's he talking about?
I'm kissing the boy behind the ice cube.
Yes, he's gone off into the world of fantasy, which is actually utterly devious. If you want to interpret
Hang on a minute. This 18-year-old boy wasn't devious when he was Clement. No, I start kissing him and then it's devious.
I know.
Actually...
You've never liked Simon, have you? Have you? You've never liked him? You've never liked Simon?
It's an impossible game to judge on, in a way. If he's in his fantasy mode, is he allowed to go and have anything? Or do you let him...
Actually, he's dead.
What? Simon's dead?
Simon is dead.
Clement, you could have broken it to me in a better way than this. I thought he'd gone quiet.
Paul Merton gets 2 bonus points. One, because he was saying, one for that extra remark. Julian, you get a correct challenge of deviation, so you get a point for that. You take the subject, 12 seconds available. The London Marathon starting now.
Fill your jockstrap with fresh fruit is my tip if you're going to run a marathon. And I have the name Simon across my back, which seems...
Paul challenge.
You liar. You don't know Simon. Simon's my friend.
But he's dead.
Oh, don't rub it in. I'm just trying to forget about that. For God's sake, are you inhuman?
I think Just a Minute's gone into a realm that it's never approached before. Oh, we're stuck in the fantasy world. So Paul...
He doesn't know Simon. He's talking about Simon as if he knows him.
Right, there we go. Another bonus to Paul, because we enjoyed what he said. A point to you, because you got a correct challenge.
Oh, thank you.
And you have the subject of Simon. I mean, no, you don't. You have the... In fact, let's change it. There's only 4 seconds to go. Talk about Simon for 4 seconds. Starting now.
It's a thankless task talking about Simon for 4 seconds because it's hard to achieve anything.
So Julian Clary was speaking when the whistle went, gained that extra point. And I'll give you the situation then. Paul Merton is still, with all his tattooing and other things he'd been saying, way out in a strong lead. But Clement, Freud and Julian Clary are equal in second place. And Pauline McLynn is bringing up in a very strong fourth place. And Pauline, it's your turn to begin. My family. Tell us something about my family in this game, starting now.
I'm quite nervous talking about my family tonight because some of them are here in the audience, but I would have to say that, like everybody else's, mine are a shower of bastards. There's no doubt that my family say some of the most horrible things to me that anybody in their right or wrong minds would attempt. When I was growing up, my brothers liked to call me Hook Nose or Veruca Head, and as a result, I don't have any vanity, I'll tell you that for nothing. They are my feet of clay. So much so that I have agreed with my husband that our children, which would be my family, my new family, are such an ungrateful shower of brats that we've decided not to have them. That will teach them a lesson. Oh.
Paul Talent.
Repetition of shower.
You said it at the beginning and you said it again.
Well, it's a rather unusual word, so...
Yeah, well, the way I use it anyway, the way I mangle it, it's unusual, but it's repetitive.
Yes, and you kept going for 41 seconds.
Oh, darn.
So the audience applauds and means that you're entitled to an extra bonus point. Paul had a correct challenge. He was listening well. You did have the shower of your own family at the beginning, and then your unborn family had a shower as well. And 19 seconds are available for my family with you, Paul, starting now.
My family are a rather extraordinary bunch of people. Take, for example, my father. He's oh.
Clement challenge.
Hesitation.
Hesitation,
Yeah,
Clement,
yeah.
correct. 13 seconds are still available. You tell us something about my family, starting now.
I have a father and a mother, 5 children, 15 grand ditto, and they're really very nice people, all of them. I put their addresses and their dates of birth into my diary. This is extremely boring.
Yeah, wait a minute, no, Pauline challenge. Yes, Pauline.
There.
Yes, repetition of there. You put
There,
their
this,
addresses
there, that.
Well, listen, Pauline, you were right on the ball there. And you got him with half a second to go.
Half a second.
And you have my family starting now.
I'd like to apologise to my family.
Julian McLynn was speaking as the whistle went. Gained that extra point, and he joined Julian Clary and Clement Freud in second place. They're still training Paul Merton, who's still in the lead. And the next subject is... I'll just get the cards out. Ooh, catchphrases. Yes, Paul, will you start us on this one? 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Catchphrases are a useful device in comedy because if you say the same thing over and again, people recognise it and respond to it. Julian Clary appeared in a show called Sticky Moments that I co-wrote with him. In 1 week, we decided to do a catchphrase, which was basically Julian would say, "It's not..." Oh.
Yes. Clement, you challenge.
Julian was repeated.
Yes, was repeated, yes. 45 seconds, catchphrases, Clement, starting now.
I do not have a catchphrase.
Paul challenge.
Well, that's a lot of nonsense. Give us it in cash. That's your catchphrase. At the end of every show.
Clement, you have the benefit of the doubt from
and
Paul.
A point.
And you have a point, yes. And give him another point for an incorrect challenge. And he has 41 seconds. Catchphrases starting now.
I like Bruce Forsyth best. He says, "Nice to see you," and I can't tell you what else goes on because it would be a repetition. There are all sorts of artists of no great talent who use catchphrases simply so people will know who they are and won't have to look up the Radio Times cast list and say, I remember the looks of that person, but I simply cannot recall what his moniker is. And therefore, catchphrases are hugely important. What does he do? People say he has a catchphrase.
There was a hesitation.
There was a hesitation.
I
there,
thought
yes.
the whistle might blow. Seemed to me I've been going on for a long time.
I know. I tell you what, Charlotte does the whistle differently to...
Yeah,
Janet
2
Staples.
minutes.
Yes. No. She doesn't put it up to her mouth with about 10 seconds to go, which Janet used to do, and you used to watch her out of the corner of your eye. Because there's still 9 seconds available, Paul, because you had a correct challenge on catchphrases starting now.
Arthur Askey had a huge number of catchphrases, which was extraordinary because he was a little man. I remember he used to say, thank you very much, which is something he got off at Liverpool.
Pauline challenge.
I think he said the word used twice.
Yes, but he didn't say thank
Used
you
to
very
and
much.
used
He said, no, thank you.
Yes, that's right.
So, both repetition and lies.
I think Nick...
That's what I'm calling him.
Pauline, you are amazing. You've got in once again with half a second to go. Catchphrases starting now.
I once had a catchphrase.
So, at the end of that round, and I might tell you, by the way, we're moving into the final round, which will follow. Oh, yes. Well, what a wave of warmth and sympathy came there. And maybe relief. I don't know. But
It's a fine line being in an audience or a hostage situation. You see, and they know it now.
I know, and they can't get out. In this situation, at the present moment, Pauline McLynn, who was only second time she's played the game, is in a very strong second place alongside Clement. They're only 1 point ahead of Julian Clary, but out in the lead, a very strong lead, is Paul Merton as we move into the final round. And I think it's called parental advice. Clement, would you start us on this one? 60 seconds, starting now.
I never got a lot of parental advice. I remember once when I was at prep school in Devon, my mother sent a telegram saying, start worrying, letter follows. And I think anyone...
So you did press your buzzer?
Well, hesitation.
There was a hesitation, yes. And he...
I should point out that Clement told me to buzz.
Because he's
So I did.
He's satisfied with a laugh, and that's enough. Right. 44 seconds are available. Parental advice, Paul, with you starting now.
Whatever you do, always be happy. That's what my dad said to me. If only.
All right. So, Julian, you challenged.
That was another sort of hesitation.
I know he broke up at the thought of it, didn't he? Right. And you've got in on parental advice with 39 seconds to go. Put Julian starting now.
When I was 16, I followed my father's advice, which was to join the army. And after a couple of hours of drilling on the forecourt, I quite got the taste for it. I did find the uniform...
Paul challenged.
Drilling on the forecourt. The army.
Yes. Have you never been?
Parade ground. Yes. Forecourt.
No, the
Well, like a garage. Forecourt. Training on the forecourt.
No, there was a forecourt.
Get up, men. We're training on the forecourt. No.
Now, they do traditionally drill on parade ground.
Yes, that's right.
But
yes,
it could possibly be that when Julian joined up at the particular establishment to which he went, they didn't have a drill ground, so they said, right, chaps, we're going to do it here on the forecourt.
That's what happened.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's perfectly possible.
And he's never looked back.
Never looked back. So you have the benefit of the doubt, Julian, and you have 26 seconds parental advice starting now.
When they showed me into the dormitory, they said, which bunk, top or bottom? I said, let me get unpacked first. And then we passed into the proper drilling area, and so the work...
As much as I'm enjoying the drilling, it's this repetitive drilling.
There's too much drilling, yes.
And I'm enjoying it, but hey, we have to call a halt somewhere.
That's all we did.
You have to get in and talk on it, Sir Pauline, which you've done, with 14 seconds available. Parental advice starting now.
I wish James Thurber had been my father, because the parental advice he would have given was never eat anything bigger than your head. All my mother ever told me was never lick a steak knife
Clement Freud challenge.
Repetition of never.
Never.
Yeah.
And he said never. So, Clement, you have got the subject back again, and you've got 4 seconds available. Parental advice starting now.
My parents took me into a baby changing room, which I felt very badly about.
Well, Clement Freud presents Speakers of Whistle. Wayne gained that extra point for doing so. He moved forward a bit. He finished up in second place. He's just ahead of Julian, Clary and Pauline McLynn. They were together almost equal in third place. But out in the lead with quite a number of points more than the rest was Paul Merton. So we say, this week, Paul, you are our winner. So, thank you. Is for delightful players of the game, Paul Merton, Julian Clary, Pauline McLynn and Clement Freud. I thank Charlotte Davis, who's helped me with the score. She's blown her whistle elegantly for me, and she's also our producer, Claire Jones. We are indebted to her for her skill and expertise, and we're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this lovely game. And we're grateful to this lovely audience here at Greenwich Theatre who've cheered us on our way. And from our panel, and from me, Nicholas Parsons, don't forget, tune in the next time we take to the air and we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the show this week 4 individual, talented, skilled players of the game, and they are seated on my right. Someone it's always a pleasure to have on the show, one of our most outstanding comedians, that master of improvised ad-lib comedy, Paul Merton, and sitting beside him we have that veteran player of the game who brings his own idiosyncratic, dry wit to the show, that is Clement Freud. And seated on my left, we welcome back after a long absence another amazing comedian who has his own individual approach to ad-lib improvised humour, and that is Ross Noble. And seated beside him, we have that master of words and language, one of this country's finest lyricists, Tim Rice. Please welcome all 4 of them. Thank you. Beside me sits Charlotte Davis, who's going to help me keep the score and blow a whistle when the 60 seconds is up. And as usual, I'm going to ask our 4 players of the game to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Pavilion Theatre in that amazing, delightful resort of Bournemouth. And we have a wonderful audience who've struggled through the heat and everything to come here and squeeze into this vast auditorium and cheer us on our way as we start the show with Paul Merton. Paul, the subject, apt for where we are, plain sailing. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Plain sailing, I suppose, is what all people on the sea look to do. You head towards the horizon knowing there are no obstacles ahead of you, and you think to yourself, the sea is so...
Ross Noble challenge.
Repetition of sea.
Yes, you did say the sea before, yes. Yeah. So, that's a correct challenge, Ross. You've been away a time, but you get back into the game. You get a point, of course, for a correct challenge. And you take over the subject. There are 49 seconds still available, and you start now.
Plain sailing can be avoided with outlandish costumes by not wearing clothes from Marks and Spencer's. If you simply place sequins all over your body and then dance as if you were at a Mardi Gras style event, people on other...
Paul challenge.
Well, all the sequins would fall off. You've got to stick them on. You can't place them on and then start dancing. All the sequins on the floor. You know that, Nicholas, don't you?
I do know that, but...
You've danced on sequins, haven't you?
Absolutely, I wear them all the time. Yeah. I've got some on underneath my shirt now. But Paul, it's a lovely idea, but maybe he has a particular way of keeping his sequins on. So
that could be true.
I don't think it was deviation. So, Ross, an incorrect challenge. A point to you. Keep the subject. 36 seconds. Plain sailing, starting now.
When I'm plain sailing, I like to smear myself with glue, just on the off chance tiny little glittery items should be thrown by pirates at me.
Paul, challenge.
Well, you can't stick glue just on the off chance. This stuff sets really quickly. You've got to put it on when you know you need it, not on the off chance. On deck in the blistering sun with glue on.
Well, he's putting it on. I mean, he wasn't actually deviating within the rules of Just a Minute. He can put glue on himself whenever he wants within this game. I mean, it may be bizarre, it may be ridiculous, it may be outrageous, but it isn't deviation.
But he's not doing it right. He's putting the glue on before he needs to.
I think you're working very... Clement, you challenge.
I think on behalf of Tim Rice and me, good evening. In case we don't get a look in.
You will get a look in, don't worry about that. Paul, you're struggling very hard.
You'd have to tell me that.
No. But no, the audience enjoyed your interruptions.
Well, some
so
of them
I will
did.
do what I think you want. I will give you a bonus point for
Okay,
the
I'll shut
audience
up now,
reaction.
then.
Right. But Ross gets a point for being interrupted. He keeps the subject plain sailing. 27 seconds, Ross, starting now.
Seagull tar is one of the things that you can use if you don't have the aforementioned substance whilst plain sailing. That can be applied on many different...
Clement challenge.
Repetition of applied.
Yes, you applied it before. So you've applied your hearing to that, and you got in well before the end. 17 seconds are still available. You've got a point, Clement. You have plain sailing starting now.
Plain sailing is fairly unusual. Plain flying is the sort of thing that I believe in. Recently sitting in a Boeing 747.
Paul, challenge.
There was a pause.
There was a hesitation,
Yes.
Paul. So you got back in again on the subject you started with, which is plain sailing, and you have 8 seconds to go, starting now.
When Christopher Columbus set on board his ship and pointed it towards the distance, he suddenly thought to himself, I will discover a place.
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Paul Merton, and he, at the end of the round, has got 3, so has Ross Noble. Clement has 1, Tim has yet to speak, and Tim, we would like you to start the next round. A nice topical subject, sandbanks. A rich thought, but a lovely thing on the beach. Please talk about it. 60 seconds, starting now.
Sandbanks has an extremely interesting history. Way back in Viking times, a load of hairy Danes appeared, and seeing sand and banks, they decided that the place they had landed should be called Pool. They proceeded from Pool to...
Clement challenged.
Repetition of pool.
Yes, you said pool, and then it should have been called pool, and then you said pool, didn't you?
Yeah.
No. It's always worth trying to lie.
No,
So
Clement.
good they named it twice.
Yeah. But it's still repetition within the rules of just a minute because it's not on the card.
Yeah.
So, Clement, a correct challenge, 44 seconds available. Tell us something about sandbanks starting now.
When Christopher Columbus set out, he took...
Tim, challenge.
I thought there was a gap there that you could
There
drive,
was a long gap,
drive
yes.
a truck through,
Yes.
frankly.
And he waited for something which didn't come. And so you got in there and you got 41 seconds. You had
Christopher Columbus drove a truck.
The first truck driver in America.
That's right, yes. I think we're getting too far into the realms of the surreal at the moment. I think 41 seconds, Tim. Sandbanks starting now.
Sandbanks today, however, is an extremely posh place, frequented by exceptionally...
Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
We call that hesitation.
Cobblers.
Yes.
It was dramatic effect. There was no gap.
It was very dramatic, but it doesn't work in just a minute. You have to be coherent and fluent, otherwise
And
someone
boring.
will jump in. And in this occasion, it was Paul Merton. Another point to him, 36 seconds. Sandbanks, Paul, starting now.
Sandbanks is, of course, one of the great old English names. I was lucky enough to be at Sandbank House just the other day, where the Duke of Sandbank entertained...
Tim challenge.
Repetition of Sandbank.
Yes, because it's Sandbanks on the card.
I didn't know his brother. I didn't know the one of them.
You made a deliberate point of saying Sandbank.
Yeah.
And then, for some reason, you deliberately repeated it.
Yes.
I know.
It's an odd kind of policy, isn't it? It's up for review.
It doesn't work in just a minute.
It doesn't work in just a minute, no.
26 seconds. Back with you, Tim. Sandbanks, starting now.
Shortly after these chaps from that country just north of Germany had done their worst in the area, another horde of invaders...
Ross challenged.
Is that a repetition of area? It was a posh area before.
That's
and now
right.
is
Well done. Well listened, Ross. So you've got in on Sandbanks as well, and 18 seconds to go, starting now.
I have to be very careful walking on sandbanks because the water makes it look like I'm Jesus on top, performing one of his many miracles. Many's a time.
Oh, yes, Clement.
Repetition of many.
Many miracles, many of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Clement, you got in on Sandbanks for 7 seconds ago, starting now.
I have never been to Sandbanks, but I believe there is a railway station which occasionally gets trains as...
Ross, you challenged.
About 25 seconds.
There was a hesitation
just before
there.
the whistle,
Yeah.
your light came on, so I can accept it, yes.
There was a hesitation.
There was a hesitation, yes, because he knew he'd said something incorrect.
No, I didn't.
There is a When is the
idea.
railway station, Sandbanks? I just thought it was a ferry over there. Is there a
You
railway
said
station? There's no railway station, is there? There you are. Absolutely. I've been there, so I know, right.
That must be very difficult for the trains, then.
It must be. Go straight into the water.
Yeah.
So, Ross, you got in on a hesitation with half a second to go. Sandbanks starting now.
Big Sandy!
So, Ross Noble then was speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point, and with others in the round, he's now taken the lead just ahead of Paul, Merton, Clement, Freud, Tim Rice in that order. Ross, will you take the next round? The subject, oh, it's so apt in the show, a mental block. Will you tell us something about a mental block in 60 seconds, if you can, starting now?
A mental block is a good way to describe a sphere. If you look at it, people will say, that's a mental block. It has no edges to it at all, and it's like...
Tim, you challenged.
He was falling apart at the seams.
Yes, he was, but I think he also...
No, I was demonstrating what it's like to have a mental block.
Yeah.
So I was playing the game in my mind, you see.
I
It
know.
just...
So, Tim, a correct challenge. A point for that. 50 seconds available. A mental block starting now.
A mental block is one of the most horrendous things that can happen to any...
Ross, challenge.
No, being attacked by tramps. That's one of them. Like really angry, drunken ones, you know.
Ross,
that as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Ross,
it
it
was one
does-
of the most horrendous things.
It doesn't matter, Tim. Within the rules of just a minute, you are all right. They loved what you said, Ross. We give you a bonus point for what you said. The audience applauded. Tim gets a point because he was interrupted, because he was correct within the rules of just a minute. You carry on. 47 seconds available. A mental block starting now.
I remember going out for a tramp once, and he wasn't too pleased. He attacked me viciously, bringing on a mental block. I said to him, "Good sir, are you aware that with your jaunty..."
Clement challenged.
I think you call tramps, sir.
I do.
Clement, you can call anybody, sir, if you
Not
wish.
if you are, sir, as Tim is.
I was being...
The tramp would be entirely confused.
Right. Here's one sir challenging another sir here.
He might have been a knight that had fallen on hard times.
It does show a stunning lack of personal self-esteem, though, if you're calling tramps sir.
Yeah,
I think you can call anybody, sir, whether you do it...
What about the Queen?
That would be very embarrassing. You've got a bonus point for that. Tim...
It's the only one I can think of, though.
You can call anybody, sir, if you wish. It might help you, it may not. It doesn't really matter. It may be your way of handling people when you encounter them. So you have another point. You have the subject still. 36 seconds. A mental block starting now.
A nervous Shakespearean actor in his first play had one line, and it was, "It is," which came after a question, "Be that yon Lord Hereford approaching over the hill?" I don't know how I'm going to tell the other half of this joke without repeating that line.
Paul.
And the nervous actor says, "Is it?"
That's right.
That's the punchline which Tim couldn't say because it repeats, "Isn't it?"
I realised
when
that
you
I was-
started it,
wasn't
Tim...
the best joke to tell on this programme, was it?
Well, every joke usually has a bit of repetition in it because you use it for emphasis and humour, as you know yourself. But I knew the joke and I thought, how the hell is he going to get out of this one? But
Thank
Paul,
you, sir.
You have a correct challenge and you have 19 seconds.
Hang on. What was the challenge for? Just remind me.
What's the challenge?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, correct. 19 seconds, Paul. A mental block starting now.
So I said to the Earl of Sandbank, "I've completely forgotten your last name." He says, "Actually, it's Sandbanks." I said, "Well, that's a bit of a mistake because I've been calling you by the singular rather than the plural." He said, "That's no problem. Have a cucumber sandwich." And at that point, who should suddenly walk in but Danny LaRue, torting...
Ross, who challenged?
Hesitation.
Yes, there was, but once again, Ross...
What is the subject again?
It's a mental block.
Oh, that's right.
You started. Very well played, Ross. You started with the subject. And your mental block is now released, I hope. You have 5 seconds available, starting now.
Sometimes if you have a mental block, you can't remember faces, which is terrible if you're performing a face transplant.
Paul.
Well, I was going to say reputation of face, but it was face and faces, so I think that's a wrong challenge.
All I have to say on that subject is, God bless you, sir.
How generous of you.
I'm not calling you a tramp.
No.
I was paying you respect for you.
Indeed, indeed.
Ross, Paul has very generously given it back to you, so you get a point for being interrupted, and you have half a second on mental block, starting now.
Who would have thought?
At the end of that round, Ross Noble has increased his lead ahead of Paul Merton, Tim Rice and Clement Freud in that order. And Clement, it's your turn to begin. The subject, a bull in a china shop. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
The reason why most china shops have notices stating no bulls is entirely because they think that these male cows are going to do damage to the china.
Tim challenged.
Well, there was hesitation, but I was going to have a go anyway on male cows, because they're not... There's no such thing as a male cow. You can't have a male cow.
All right, you made your point.
I didn't...
Sorry.
want you to have it. No, I was just explaining.
What is this, the Archers? What's going on?
Tim, it's a way of keeping going, but you have him on hesitation. So you have now take over the subject with 48 seconds to go. A bull in a china shop, starting now.
Extremely gripping would be the situation of a Chinaman in a bullpen. But I digress, and I wish to go straight back...
Ross challenged.
If he digresses, that's deviation.
Deviation, yes. You have to be awfully careful what you say, Tim, because otherwise, that is, you've admitted your fault. 37 seconds for you, Ross. A bull in a china shop, starting now.
The problem isn't the bulls, it's the matadors, because they tend to swing their big capes around the place. The bull only takes out the china on the lower levels, whereas those fellas in those tight trousers, they tend to...
Repetition of those.
Yes. You had a lot of those in your dissertation.
Those fellas in them, those trousers.
I should have said them, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm a fool of myself.
It sounds so easy, but it's so difficult. 25 seconds, Paul. A bull in a china shop, starting now.
One of my maddest business schemes was to put a bull in charge of a china shop in the Strand. I gave him £600 worth of petty cash. I came back the next day, and would you believe he hadn't sold one single plate? But...
Clement challenged.
Yeah, I'd believe that.
Clement, they enjoyed the interruption. We give you a bonus point for that. But you have your challenge within the rules of just a minute. None.
He asked.
But Paul, you get a point for being interrupted. You keep the subject, a bull in a china shop. 14 seconds, starting now.
Much more successful was the giraffe in the Tupperware store, but I can't get into that. Because the bull in the china shop had no idea of how to work the cash register. His little hooves pressed...
Ross challenged.
Repetition of cash. It's petty cash.
Oh, yes. Well, listen, Ross. And once again, you got in just before the whistle. 1 second to go, Ross, on a bull in a china shop, starting now.
I've often thought...
Ross Noble was again speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point and has increased his lead, but he's still closely followed by Paul Merton, and then comes Tim Rice, and then Clement Freud in that order. They've all got points. And Paul, it's your turn to begin. The subject, Max Bygraves. Well, I think he's fairly local. Anyway, yes. Talk about Max Bygraves in just a minute. 60 seconds, starting now.
Yes, I believe Max Bygraves is a resident of Poole these days. I went to see him at the Victoria Palace in a show called Sing-Along-a What's It. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I can still remember...
Ross challenge.
Wasn't it Sing-Along-a Warriors?
Yes. No, Sing-Along-a Max it was, but...
Sing-Along-a Max.
I couldn't say Max because it was Max Bygraves, so I said Sing-Along-a What's It.
I just thought he was talking about singing to, cheesy snacks.
No. So you haven't gone in...
Deviation, because it wasn't the name of the show.
And it's too late now. That was your second challenge. Your first challenge I can't allow.
Funny enough, he was singing to little packets of cheesy snacks. And it would have been a much better title than Sing Along and Max, but there we are.
You've got the subject still with a point. 52 seconds. Max Bygrave starting now.
Keep London tidy, eat a pigeon. That was one of his jokes, I seem to remember. There was another one as well, where a man was standing at the airport waiting for his daughter to come home. She comes down the steps of the aeroplane. She's got this sort of African...
Tim, yes.
An gave away the hesitation.
Yeah, I was trying to remember
I know, you're going right back into the past with Max's jokes, and some of his jokes did go back into the past, didn't they? Tim, you've got a correct challenge, 41 seconds. Max Bygraves starting now.
Max Bygraves is a magnificent comedian and record maker who had a lot of hits starting way back in the 50s with songs such as Cow Puncher's Cantata, Gilly Gilly, Ossenpfeffer. That's all one word.
No, it's a hyphenated
The entire
word.
point of that song is that it's one word.
No, it isn't. If you look at the sleeve of your collection of 78s, you'll see it's written as two words or a hyphen. Clement listened well. He got in first. Clement, you have the subject. 31 seconds. Max Bygraves starting now.
I once met Max Bygraves at Liverpool Street Station, and we went via...
Ross. So I was a bit of a hesitation.
I know, it's wicked, isn't it? But Ross, it's correct.
But I want to find out what they were up to.
It's the world of speed dating.
We'll find out later. 26 seconds. Max Bygraves, Ross, starting now.
Max Bygraves is one of the things you'll often hear an undertaker say to his young apprentice. Go over there, Max Bygraves, because we can't afford to have them dug. So he will go out and he will invest in these holes.
Clement challenge.
He will.
And he will.
And he will.
And Clement, you have a correct challenge, and you have Max Bygraves back with you. 13 seconds starting now.
So Max Bygraves and I, Mount Nessing, Margaretting, Brentwood, Chelmsford, Colchester, Marksdale. The train stopped at each of these places, and we talked. Max, I said, Clement said he.
So, at the end of the round, Clement Freud was speaking as the whistle went. He's moved forward. He's now just beside Tim Rice. They're both together in third place, just behind Paul. Paul's just behind Ross, who's in the lead. And Tim, we'd like you to take the next round. How to flirt, starting now.
Get your kit off, doll. That's the way to get into some flirting. Follow that up with quoting some wonderful lyrics, such as the magnificent Johnny Mercer's song, Moon River. I'd like to give you a little snatch of that wonderful libretto right here and now. Moon River, wider than a mile, I'm crossing you in style someday. I think you have to be subtle in these matters, a discreet wink rather than getting your...
Hesitation.
Yes, and he knew why. 26 seconds. How to flirt, starting now.
Make eye contact, that's what they say, but that means just look. Don't actually put the pupil against the other person, especially if you've never met them before. It can freak out a lady, especially in a nightclub situation.
Tim is challenged.
To a specialist.
Oh, yeah.
So, Tim, there are still 12 seconds for you to tell us more about how to flirt, starting now.
Often you find that shining wit, and that's not a spoonerism, is something that can be really helpful as far as flirting is concerned. You can captivate the object of your desire by a sheer length of...
So, Tim Rice was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and he's moved forward. He's now equal in second place alongside Paul Merton. Clement Freud is just behind them, but out in the lead still is Ross Noble, and we're moving into the final round. Now, we've got a very topical subject now, Ross, to finish this show on, and your turn to start. It's fake tan. I don't know whether you've resorted to it, but I'm not talk on the subject. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
A lot of celebrities go for the fake tan. In fact, Dale Winton is so orange, if you lick him, he cures scurvy. I've been out there on the high seas making sure that I have...
Tim challenged.
Great start, and then it fell away badly.
You were clapping.
Yeah, you were talking dribble. I could hear what you were saying. No one else could.
Well, unless you've got taped proof.
So what is your challenge,
Deviation.
Tim?
He was rabbiting on about the sea. I couldn't hear it really.
It doesn't really matter. He kept going. None of us could hear it because the laughter was so loud. You were sitting beside him, so maybe you think you heard it. I think I've got to give the benefit of the doubt to Ross.
Sir, you are right.
Ross, you have the subject still. 47 seconds. Fake tan starting now.
What you can do is smear gravy all over yourself. Unfortunately, this has been tried and one person was licked to death by the Brigstocke kids.
Clement challenge.
The repetition of licked.
Yes, you licked.
Was it?
What?
You licked Dale Winton.
You licked Dale Winton.
That was never proven.
That wasn't proven, but you use the word licked in relation to Dale Winton with his fake tan.
Didn't I lick him?
No.
Yeah.
If you lick Dale Winton, it's cure for scurvy.
And there we are, licked.
Licked to death by...
Licked is a repetition. It's a tough game, and Clement's played it for quite a long time.
What's interesting is that Ross isn't bothered about the fact that he licked Dale Linton. It's just... this is whether it's in the past tense or the present tense. That's the only thing that seems to be concerning him.
Yeah.
It was a look on his face, actually, because you could almost get the recall and the flavour. It was very worrying. On his face.
On his face?
On Ross's face, the thought of licking Dale Winton. I think we should move on, really. Ross, I'm fed up with this. You have the subject. Go on. 32 seconds, fake tan with you, Ross, starting now.
Oh, it's me, is it?
Yes. Tim.
Deviation.
No, it wasn't deviation, it was hesitation. Bad luck. No, that's quite right. So it's back with you, Paul. You have a go. 31 seconds, starting now.
It's very difficult to get yourself a good fake tan that will fool every single person. I remember walking through Spain one year. I was desperately lost. I said to the bus driver, this doesn't look like Walthamstow.
Tim Challenge.
If he was walking, why would he be saying to a bus driver?
I said...
The bus had stopped, and he said to the bus driver, how do you get there?
The bus driver said, look, it's my 20-minute break. I'm just surrounded by dunes. I don't know where I am.
Right, there we are.
It always says you shouldn't talk to bus drivers.
I think that's only in Tanzania, but give Clement a bonus point because I enjoyed what he said. Paul, you still have the subject. 23 seconds, fake tan starting now.
Hollywood film stars specialise in the fake tan. They want to look as orange or as brown as they possibly can. Take, for example, Farrah Fawcett Majors. She was a big celebrity in the 1970s, but she was completely looking like something that Mr. Jaffa might have produced on one of his farms out in California. It was the most extraordinary thing. I don't know why I married her in the end. 15 years, what a terrible time. We lived in Walthamstow, there's a repetition for you. And...
Well, Paul Merton finished that subject. There was 23 seconds to go, but he went for 45. And that's because I stopped the whistle being blown in order to see what pressure can go on. But put Paul under pressure, and he goes into the realms of the surreal, which is delightful. You got a point for speaking as the whistle went, and you finished in second place.
Lovely.
Lovely. Tim Rice and Clement Freud were equal in third place, only just behind Paul. Paul was a few points behind Ross Noble. So, Ross, you have returned to triumph this week. You are our winner. It only remains for me to say thank you to these four fine players of the game: Paul Merton, Clement Freud, Ross Noble and Tim Rice. I thank Charlotte Davis, who's helped me keep the score, blown her whistle so elegantly. We thank our producer, director, Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this game. And we're very grateful to this lovely audience here in this very hot theatre here, the Pavilion down in Bournemouth. They've cheered us on our way. Thank you, audience. From them, from me, Nicholas Parsons and our team, goodbye. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute.